we can zigzag all over the place.
Yeah.
We'll definitely do some zigzagging. Yo, yo. The Last Things live stream. It's back. It's back in action. Coming to you from New York. Not going to go into my whole life story, everyone here, but my things are up in the air. They're not awesome, but life's not just a parade of awesome things, obviously. But yes, I'm broadcasting to you from Glendale, Queens, in a place that is not going to be the place that I'm really living in. The place I'm really going to be living in. We'll see. But yes, from New York, and we've got Jesse Moynihan here. People are psyched. Jesse's got fans all over the place, and they're tuning in. And
What's up, dude? By the way, I got my gamer headphones on. Like I'm gonna have to like figure out a different situation because I feel like an idiot every time I'm on a Zoom call. I
nah,
feel like I'm
man.
about to like log into Halo.
I don't know. There's nothing. I mean, do you are you not a gamer or like
I am a gamer,
you are, right? So, but you kind of
but you
hate.
try to keep it secret a little bit.
I think that's a generation thing because I think like our generation, like it was like you didn't get girls if you played video games, but the
Yeah.
younger kids, like it's like the hot girls play video games and shit. Like, is
Yeah,
that
it's I think that's correct. Although my girlfriend does not play video games, but
nice?
I think of a certain yeah, it's more cool. It's cooler now than it was for sure.
Yeah, like I
Um,
think it's way cooler because like I remember it was like yeah, like at age like 12 or something, I was like it's either Sonic the Hedgehog or like getting a hand job, and I was just like this is
right.
a no brainer.
Yeah,
Sonic's cool, but I'm going with the girl, and yeah. Now you can have it all.
yeah. Well, I went like my history of that is so weird because I went to boarding school, so it was just a bunch of bros packed in a dorm, playing Street Fighter or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's my like formative pubescent memory. It was super male centric and nerded out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, Street
um,
Fighter.
yeah, I don't have like good memories of even like any sort of memories of dating. I didn't date until my like early 20s,
Yeah.
until
Well, yeah,
after
I mean, well,
college.
yeah, no one like dates in high school. Like,
Yeah.
like just like, but
Yeah, but I
yeah,
had friends who had girlfriends, and I was like, "What is that? Show me the secret. Give me
right,
the
right.
unlock the door for me. I don't understand it."
Yeah, but it never
Yeah,
unlocks because it's just it remains a secret. It's ever elusive.
yeah. I think that's why there's so much fiction written about it eternally. Like there's no and music. There's just like never-ending source of repetitive themes,
Yeah,
and everyone thinks they're experiencing it for the first time in history or something.
right,
But
right. The
I
first,
still relate. Yeah, I still relate to it.
yeah, first got to fall in love. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
or get their heart broken or whatever.
yeah, for real. Hey,
Yeah,
man. I'm glad you and I got to hang in LA before I moved back, you know. Um
yeah. I'm sorry that we didn't get to hang out more. We only like really hung out a couple times, but
yeah, but we got some epic hangs though, man. Those were like really,
yeah,
really like serious like I think last time we just showed up and just went like just double filibuster style and like okay, peace. Like it was just like
yeah,
on like non-stop just content onslaught, you know.
yeah. It was like a 5 hour coffee sesh, I
Hell yeah,
think.
dude. Hell
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But
I've got
yeah.
my fucking. This is what the degeneracy that I have at my house.
Oh yeah, Monster's pretty
Uh,
grim. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I'm drinking just some regular espresso. Yeah, I think we're both like a little behind the eight ball sleep wise, right? So we're kind of like pushing uphill. You know what I mean?
it's
Like,
been that way for months for me. I've got cans. I've got fucking just like
oh shit, grimness,
it's
ravishing
grim.
grimness, man.
It's
Yeah.
grim, dude.
Well, we should like,
Yeah,
I was gonna say like let's do in this chronological order, or whatever. But but
yeah,
but let's talk about what we were talking about, man, because we you know well look, I mean, if anybody, no, okay, there will be people who are tuning in who do not know you. Some people will.
yeah.
Yes, Jesse Moynihan is a cartoonist, storyboard artist, and writer. who has worked on the really well-known shows Adventure Time and Midnight Gospel more recently. And he's the man behind Forming, which I want to talk about a little bit later in the episode. This like epic graphic novel that's been going, like volumes and volumes of Forming have been coming out since like 2009. So I definitely want to get caught up on like over a decade of Forming. And the new thing is you're talking about Jesus 2, right? So that's like your
Yeah.
new short film, right? And this is why
Yeah.
you're lacking sleep right now, is because you're like
Yeah.
crushing it on Jesus 2. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's just dive and tell people what's up with Jesus 2. We talked a little bit when we hung out at the Middle Eastern place, but
Well, Jesus 2 is okay. So you just like escaped from LA, you know,
yeah.
and so I've been working in animation industry since like 2009 and end of 2000, somewhere around 2009. I can't remember now. I got a job offer uh, from Adventure Time to storyboard on for them, and I was working as a towel boy at University of Penn, their gym.
Oh,
Just
literally
so
a towel boy, like that's
Yeah, I was washing towels for all the people who were coming out of the pool or whatever, and they would throw me their towels, and then I would fucking go wash them. And it would be like girls. There would be like girls because I was in the music scene in Philadelphia, so there would be girls who I had crushes on, who were at shows, and they'd be like, see my band play, and then I'm washing their towels, and then
no.
and they're like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Oh, I just wanted a free membership to the gym." And and also I don't want to have a real job because I'm trying to work on my comics. So I just wanted like a part-time job and draw all day at the Green Line Cafe in West Philly. That's mostly where I posted up. But yeah, so I got that job, and then I was working steady for like 7 years on Adventure Time. And then ever since then, it's been this like I quit in order to do my own thing, kind of, and like be less tied to a specific 9 to 5 kind of situation. I
Wait,
wanted a person.
you're saying
Oh,
you quit Adventure Time, you're saying?
yeah, I quit because I was like, I felt like creatively tapped in that universe, and I was like, I need to do my own thing and do something else and see what I could do. If I could ride off the goodwill of having worked on that show and see if I could get my own stuff made and all that kind of
It's
stuff.
a big resume. I mean, with huge feather in one's cap, right? I mean, that's big.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could feel it at the time, but also at the time I could feel things changing in the industry a bit, and the like income models for all these big streaming services was changing. They were realizing that actually streaming and subscription services were putting them in the hole. I think it took a number of years to figure that out, but you could kind of, I don't know, psychically I was sensing something.
Yeah.
And then about during the pandemic, it really felt like that. I was like, shit's falling apart. Like, so I had this dream this whole time of making my own work, uh, of like just making my own independent animated stuff. And my buddy Dash Shaw, who's another comic artist who kind of has been a mentor to me since the early days, like 2005 era of going to comic conventions and stuff. He was making his own feature films, um, just like raising money himself and all this kind of stuff, and working with small teams, just doing it super budget. And he came out with 2 feature films while I was still pitching at studios and not getting anything made. And I was
Mm.
like, this is something's fucked up here. Like maybe I'm not doing this right. Maybe I should just be doing it on my own.
Right.
And
This is the beginning of Jesus 2
yeah.
after you had you left Adventure Time when like
Gosh, I can't remember.
well, I mean, but we're talking like
It's
5 years ago or like
yeah, like
yeah.
6, 7 years ago,
Right
something
on.
like.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. It's all smear. Like I can't.
Yeah. Okay, but
I need.
roughly,
I
yeah.
need. I need to reference my own timeline. I can't.
Hmm.
All the years just blur together. So yeah, around that time, I quit Adventure Time. I developed a show for Cartoon Network for a year that eventually just got the thumbs down. And I took that idea and just sat with it for like 5 years. And then during the pandemic, when we were all trapped in our houses, I took that idea and reimagined it as something that I was like, take all the shit that happens in development, where you're being forced to like incorporate ideas you don't like, expand ideas you don't like. I just took all that out, and then like just brain farted my own short film. That's like Jesus 2, what Jesus 2 is.
Okay. Okay.
Just like sort of like automatic writing kind of thing,
Mm.
where you're not because I was like, I had no intent. Actually, originally I'm just making this for me. I don't even know if anyone's going to see this. So I just, drew it, and I sat in there with a microphone, just like acting out the voices myself and doing sound effects and stuff like that. And I made a really rough cut. And then when I was done, I showed it to my girlfriend, and I showed it to Penn, who created Adventure Time. And
oh yeah, Pendleton Ward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey man, like I don't know. I made this for fun. I don't know what to do with it because I don't think anyone will want this. It's too crazy or whatever. And he wrote me back, and he was like, I think this is the best thing you've ever made.
Hell yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. And then so I was like, that gave me this shot in the arm where I was like, okay, this person he's also been sort of a mentor to me for years, was like telling me this was my best work. And then I was like, okay, maybe I'll try showing this to some people. And I tried showing it to a couple studios, and they were like, what? They didn't give me the same response.
Right. Right.
They gave me a very like whatever response.
Okay.
And so then I was like, and then I showed it to my buddy Tom, who's he's a peer of mine. We worked together on a bunch of stuff. And Tom gave me the same response. He was like, this is your best thing. This is the best thing you've made. So two people who I really respected told me it was the best thing I've made. And then everyone else was like crickets.
Why does this sound familiar to me? Why am I familiar with two people in the audience, but they're like profoundly influential figures in like our field?
Yeah. So
like
I'm
that,
like, who
that
do
thing.
okay. So the people who have money are not going to give me money to make this thing. So I was like, okay, that's fine. This is my opportunity because I also wasn't working during the pandemic. I didn't have a job for like a year.
Yeah.
So, and I felt like, I was like, okay, I'm being forced into a corner. I need to figure out a way just to make my own stuff. Like, this is the opportunity. Actually, lack of opportunity created this opportunity for me to actually stop chasing the carrot. Like, because I had been chasing this carrot of pitching shows, pitching ideas to Netflix and all these places for probably like around 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, well, you'd been working in that industry, right? I mean, just on
Right.
Adventure Time and Midnight Gospel, you were like way high up in the whatever.
Yeah,
that structure.
I also thought Midnight Gospel was going to give me some amount of goodwill, and it did to a certain extent. It's weird. It's like working on that show, designing that show got me into rooms.
Yeah.
Where I could talk to people, like the people who produced that show, the executives. After that show wrapped, I actually I was like, hey, could I pitch this thing? I pitched an early version of Jesus 2 to them. And they were like, sure, come in. And so I went and took a meeting with them. And they were like big fans, blah, 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 like all that kind of stuff. And then this is my fault. But I started explaining the world to them, and then all my ideas about death. I was having like anxiety attacks about dying and stuff every night.
Okay.
And I was like, I wanted to make this story that was sort of like a devil's advocate about death, and that actually death is something to look forward to rather than something to be afraid of, because I'm so fucking scared of dying.
Yeah.
Like to the point where it affects my life. So I was like, I need to make a devil's advocate about death story. And I explained that to them, and they're like, okay, that's cool. And then they're like, so what are these characters like? Who are they? And they started going through this whole like, I don't know if you know that book, Save the Cat.
No.
So there's a famous screenwriting book called Save the Cat. That's like the template for every show that ever gets made in Hollywood. And it's very character centric and has like a template for a story, how a story arc works in the show. And so they started throwing this like Save the Cat stuff at me. And they were like, what are these characters like? What do they want? Blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, I completely shut down. And I was like,
Yeah.
I literally said, I don't want to tell you. And,
You're like, dude, I'm weird. Isn't that
yeah,
why I'm in here? Like, I mean, what was the
yeah,
character arc of like the Midnight Gospel?
yeah.
I mean, what's the, you know what I mean? Like,
I actually I don't know how Midnight Gospel got made. I like the whole time I was working on it, I was still baffled by it. I was like, they're gonna shut this show down any
it's
second.
very, very surreal. I mean, it's very
Yeah.
legitimately out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that got made gave me this weird sort of almost like I don't know, this like arrogance to like walk into a executive development room and just tell them I'm not going to tell them what my idea is, basically, and that they
Yeah.
should just throw money at me and let me make the thing I want to make. I thought I could just bully my way through this,
Right, just
you know.
psychic, like just weird, like
Yeah.
like charisma, but not saying a lot, and just like
Yeah.
zapping them with like
Yeah. But
You get these unrealistic things, and you grow up, you know, you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna be like, you know, David Lynch or John Zorn. I'm just gonna do the weirdest shit and get paid, bro. It's just like that's
yeah.
two dudes that did that,
Yeah.
you know.
It's
What I mean?
like
It's
you
like
just you're
it's
like, I can be that guy. Like, you
it's
know.
not you could have
And
the most brilliant shit on earth. It's not necessarily gonna go down like that, you know.
yeah, so I had been this was the other big problem. I had been watching all those David Lynch videos where he refuses to explain anything.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I was thinking where,
Yeah, yeah.
the classic thing of like, yeah, it's just like Eraserhead's my most spiritual film. Like, do you care to explain? He's like, no.
Yeah. Every time I watch those videos, I get so pumped up. I'm just
I
like,
know.
it really psychs me up. It makes me feel like powerful as a like a person who can follow their intuition and believe in
Yes.
themselves and all this kind of stuff.
Hell yeah.
And even if like, David Lynch like hit the lottery, like, I don't know, it's like right time, right place, right person, all that kind of stuff. But he's out there like as this example of like what could be like the fantasy of someone who really wants to follow their intuition as they make stuff. And so I was in that mindset. I think I was definitely in that mindset when I went into that meeting. And they just were like, we understand. They kind of were like, we get it. We get what you're saying. Why you don't want to. I was like, if I talk about these characters, it's gonna kill them. I'm gonna kill them.
Right.
And I can't do that right now. I need to be able to write it first. You just gotta let me write it and like show you what show you. Let me get that far. Let me make a storyboard and write the story for you. And they were like, we'll call you later. Like, and I never heard from them again. Like, and I can't blame them. I can't really blame them. Like, their jobs are on the line. There's a whole like, being a development executive is a terrible job. It's really difficult and volatile, and they're always getting fired and moved around to different networks and stuff. So I can't blame them. There's millions of dollars on the line if these greenlight a show, like all this kind of stuff. So they take big risks by
No doubt.
greenlighting something like Midnight Gospel.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like I was checking out though. I don't know if it was an interview. I can't remember if it was an interview you did on another podcast or if it was just something I was reading where you were, or no, also just our conversation when you were talking about what you were saying about death in Jesus too. I mean, it's not a spoiler alert, right? If we talk specifically about, because right, I guess the premise is that there's like demons that have made everyone immortal, and that's like a curse, and that people are trying to escape to death, right? I mean, this is sort of like the dissidents, the dissident group wants to die, and they're like not being allowed to die.
I think it was a combo of my own personal fear of death and fear of my friends dying and fear of my like family dying and all this kind of stuff. Like, I'll just sit there and lay in bed at night, just start thinking about it and just start screaming,
Damn,
So
man.
yeah. I mean, it hasn't
Sorry.
been yeah, it hasn't been happening lately. I think
Yeah, I'm
I
sorry.
see
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
I see
yeah.
a therapist. You know, I try to talk through it, but but um but at the same time, like my YouTube algorithm was like, there was a lot of like rich people, like life extension stuff going on, like all these like tech lords like are super into life extension
Yes,
technology and
they
stuff.
are. It's really Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's like of course it's like villainous. It's like exact
yeah,
like
it's like it's total like I can't. It's total like Smaug from Lord of the Rings. Like I can't leave my treasure trove. Like what
yeah.
happens if I amass all this like ego and wealth and notoriety for my accomplishments, and then I have to at some point you just like it's a fucking over, and you just gotta let go of all that stuff, and either like I don't know what happens. Either you just completely go nothing or we reincarnate or something. I don't know what, nobody knows. But that's the scariest thing for someone who's invested so much time into building a legacy,
Yeah.
and has succeeded like extremely well. To just be like, well, your ticket,
Yeah, you
get
can't
out of
take it
here.
with you. Yeah,
Can't take it with you.
it's not just the money that you can't take with you. It's the all the glory and just your body of work.
Yeah, and same similar feeling for me. Weirdly enough, is like this idea of being an artist, making things to like leave behind. I don't have kids. Like all I have is my art. Maybe I could have kids someday. I don't know. But like, I think a lot of people their legacy is their children, right? It's like
Yeah.
you imprint them with some sort of like life lessons and your biology, and then you just like let them go and live on. I could see how that would be a reassurance about death, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I mean, as
Uh,
it should be. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't have kids either, and it's likely that I won't. So I'm kind of like, I have hitting this age and at that turning point of like realizing that that's probably true. I have been thinking, I'm like, oh damn, like my body of work is like, I mean that's it. That's
yeah,
all I'm leaving. I mean, it's sort of like, yeah, it's like, what's my excuse for not having kids? It's like, what's the, like, what am I doing instead? It's like,
yeah,
but
and then I think I have fantasies about um, becoming really well known for my books or something, and then I have this like image of like all my books burning up in the sun when the sun explodes,
oh
or
yeah, yeah,
whatever, and you're just like, fuck none of it adds up to anything. Eventually, like if you zoom out large enough, it's just like everything gets gobbled up by the sun.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but then maybe there's like so the only thing you can really hope for is that there's like a some sort of like spiritual resonance that happens, like from your contribution to humanity or something, that even if humanity dies, there's some sort of like resonant memory within the molecules of the universe
okay, yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
that you did something cool, maybe, or you contributed to like
It
um
matters. It
yeah,
matters. I definitely am not into that. I mean, I'm scared to death too, but like I'm
yeah,
not. I'm not so much afraid of that it renders life meaningless or anything like that. I mean, it's
yeah,
really just scary because it's the unknown,
yeah,
and because we're on borrowed time here and just limited time. That's what scares me. But it's like, yeah, it doesn't make me feel like more insignificant exactly, but there is that panic of like, you know, crank this shit out, man. Crank it out.
yeah.
Be
I think
deep. It's got to be deep.
yeah, I think when I think I've told this story a couple of times, but when I was 25, I was in a band, Make a Rising, and we had released our first album, and it got like reviewed on Pitchfork and a pretty nice review. And then this guy from shit, what was that magazine? Um, he was a writer for one of the good ones, one of the good the ones that music nerds liked.
But
Fucking,
The Wire, Quietus.
it might have been Wire, The Wire. He was a freelance writer, but he had written stuff for The Wire, and he called me. He was like, "I want to interview you and try to get you in The Wire or whatever." I remember him saying to me, we had a good talk, and he was like a downtown New York sort of like music enthusiast. I think I saw him at Aziz's show, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he at the end of our interview, he's like, "And you guys are really young too, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm 25." And then he didn't say anything back to me.
He was like, "That's not yeah."
Yeah. And
right, he couldn't just humor you and be like, "Yeah, that's young," you know. Yeah.
And I remember that silence was like put everything in perspective for me.
That's just socially weird of him to like
Yeah.
not at least, you know what I mean? Like he could at least jokingly be like, "Oh, well, kind of young" or something. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
depends on
now
what,
to me, 25, I'm like, damn, 25 is young, but
well, young for what? You know, I mean, yeah, I think it's young. I think what you were doing then, it was so advanced. I would say that it's pretty young to have been doing that at like 25, like doing a lot of it. Like, I don't know, just like, you know.
yeah, but to me, that put the clock, that like turned the clock on for me. At that point, I didn't like, actually everything I was doing at that point in time, I don't know if I've ever said this actually, was to prove my ex-friend wrong, if that makes sense.
Well, you had some friend who told you'd never be shit or something.
No, he was my best friend in high school. And he was another artist, he was another cartoonist. He taught me how to draw basically. And we were like so close. And we were in bands together. He was an amazing bass player. And it was like a symbiotic, like I was like totally emotionally dependent on him basically. And to the point where I was like basically what do you call it, I would be jealous if he dated girls and stuff like that. Like I acted really weird. You know?
Well, it's like you don't, when you're that age, like you don't have a healthy grip on competitive feelings of competition and jealousy. Like you just let it fuck you up. You can't like just admit it, you know?
Yeah, I didn't understand that. I just was like totally like I was like, this guy cannot leave me. Like he's my main collaborator in life. And then I think he just got sick of me basically and pieced out and like went like disappeared and went and became an entomologist or whatever.
Tight.
And
as one does.
Yeah, we're cool now, but we didn't talk for years.
Yeah.
Like we had a huge blowout, and I was like, you don't believe in the dream, you know? Like the dream was like to be like a punk artist, like kind of pursue the punk art dream or something, whatever it was, the do it yourself kind of thing.
Yep.
So everything after we stopped being friends, everything after that up until my mid 20s, I think was to prove I was like, I picked the right path. You didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a really funny motivator, man. It's like ex-friend, man. And that's like, but so you're talking about the Make a Rising days, which I mean, I think fans of yours probably know Make a Rising, I guess.
They might, some of them do.
But yeah, this was, I mean, this is how Jesse and I met, was through when he was like in Philly doing this band Make a Rising, and I was in Z's and we were playing shows together. And you ran the Avant Gentleman's Lodge, right? That was like your spot, right?
Yeah, me, my brother, and our drummer John.
Yeah.
We got a sweet ass deal on a warehouse. This guy Willie was the landlord, and he was a cool old hippie guy, Philly hippie landlord guy. So he let us rent it for super cheap, like crazy cheap.
Dude, I always loved Philly, and I loved it so much then because there was just like this little pocket of you guys doing this stuff. I mean, just the Avant Gentleman's Lodge. Like that's my favorite name for a DIY venue of any DIY venue I've ever played. I mean,
so we had to go. We had to go to a community, like a community meeting, to prove to the community, the council or whatever, that we weren't running an underground strip club.
Because it's gentlemen's.
Yeah, there was this, because I think our neighbors heard from people looking for where the spot was. They would knock on doors and be like, do you know where the Avant Gentleman's Lodge is or whatever? And they were like, who's running a fucking strip club? in our neighborhood.
Fucking avant.
Yeah,
Such an
so
avant gentleman.
we were next door to a dance company, Philadanco,
Yeah.
and they hated us. And I remember that I went over there to the lady who ran it. She's this like legendary dance teacher person, and I was like, "Hey, like I live next door. I just want you to know we're not. There's no strippers. Like we're not running some weird moonlight like
Yeah.
strip club. We're having band like we're trying to like have bands play and like cultivate this like cool underground like music scene and stuff like that. We have like free jazz people coming by, like, it's not that. And she just like looked at me and was like, she was like, why is it called Gentleman's Lodge?
Right? Just no humor about this at
Yeah,
all.
yeah. And I was like, I'm here. I'm like telling you. I don't know how to prove it. Just come by.
Yeah, yeah.
But she hated us so much. Oh my, any chance she got
Yeah.
to like
It was a
give us,
scene, man. It was there was some really cool. There's Make a Rising, and then Dysrhythmia, still obviously still classic band, but you had like what else? I mean, it's like Normal Love, right? Classic.
Normal Love. There was
Um,
I mean there was a huge like sort of like Philly intersection of like noise, free jazz, and the like avant rock scene, like the West
yeah,
Philly weirdos.
and some kind of proggy stuff. Or I mean, early
Yeah.
Wise Blood, when Wise Blood was noise.
Yeah,
You
she
know,
was in with Alex Nagel. She was in Satanized with
say
Alex Nagel.
yes, Satanized. Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Yeah, and she was like a wild. I remember when she first showed up, um, the like kind of star power immediately. Like you kind of knew she was
yeah.
gonna do something.
No doubt. Yeah,
Um, I actually ran into her on the street getting groceries like a couple months ago, and that was the
yeah,
first time I talked to her in years. Um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, she was cool, and there was what else was going on? I don't know. And we tried
Man,
to.
Man. That was another
Oh
one.
yeah, Man Man.
Man. Yeah.
Sort of like Man was like right on the edge of being like that like weird, especially the earlier albums, like weird enough to like hang with the weirdo West Philly people, and then but then somehow mainstream enough to get some sort of clout in like the more indie rock kind
Yeah,
of
indie
circles.
psyche kind of indie rock. Yeah, yeah,
That was that hopeful time when you thought like your weird band could like break through,
yeah,
because there were a couple of examples of it, of like pretty weird
yeah. No,
bands like getting through.
there's always someone sort of like giving that example, even though if it's like isolated at a certain time. But
Yeah,
I always love Philly. I mean, music wise and just in general, that it's like this place. It's not trying to be New York. It
yeah.
doesn't think there's no it's like it's kind of like fuck New York in a way.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
not at,
for
right
sure.
like not but in a
Yeah,
way that I take no offense at. I'm like,
I
man,
still have a chip on my shoulder about New York.
I think
It's
that's very
weird.
legitimate. I mean, I can't not live here. It's but
Yeah,
it's like I love it more than like really anything in the world. But
it was always
I get
like,
it though. I
what
get
did
it.
New York say? What did those fuckers say? Like,
But we had the alliance though. We had that New York Philly,
yeah,
like bond, man. So that's why
yeah.
I always loved Philly, even if Philly didn't love us. I was like,
We
this
did
is
well. I mean, we needed New York. It was this weird thing. It's like we needed to be able to go up to New York, play. I mean, there was like New York, Philly, DC, Baltimore. Sometimes like the like further south a bit, but
like Richmond. Maybe you get down there.
yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe what do you call it? Rhode Island also,
Hmm.
and not really Boston, but
Yeah.
um, I caught a few cool bands from Boston, um, but New York, man, it was sort of like we always wanted we wanted to get to know New York bands. We wanted to get Todd P to like put get us on shows and
No,
all that
yeah.
kind of stuff.
Did you never do a Todd show?
No,
Ah,
Todd,
it's
we
a
weren't
shame.
cool enough for Todd P.
Ah,
But
I don't know.
we did get into Glasslands. We did get into like that like Death by Audio
Nah, you did it then. There it
stuff.
is. That's what
Yeah,
you wanted. Well, because yeah, I mean, like Make a Rising was really prog-ish, but also psyche kind of, right? And there's Beach
yeah,
Boys kind of elements. I mean, it
yeah,
definitely like having seen your works like since then and caught up on your like work, like your main work in life. It's like there's an aesthetic, like I can hear it, like I can hear how that, or like that music sounds
Yeah.
somewhat like your work as a cartoonist,
I think,
Um,
yeah. So I do think of my cartoon work as prog. Uh,
nice.
yeah.
That I want to hear unpacked.
Right. So I think what happened was, so I came from, I grew up like a hardcore punk kid, like straight edge hardcore. I actually recently listened to your like recap of New York hardcore.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and it was interesting to listen to you talking about Earth Crisis, because Earth Crisis at one point was probably one of my favorite bands.
That was your shit, huh?
And
Yeah.
now listening, it doesn't hold up. Like now listening to it, it's the dumbest shit. It's like the bottom of the barrel as far as like
Well,
hardcore goes.
I mean, Madball holds up,
Yeah, no,
It's
a lot of hardcore holds up. Like to
yeah,
me, coming back to it, like sort of going through a big trajectory of like punk hardcore, getting super into prog, free jazz, and all that kind of stuff, and a little bit into like metal, prog metal stuff,
yeah,
um, and then getting so far down that zone to the point where I come back and I'm like, you know what, I kind of like post hardcore now again. Like it's sort of like you get sick of that stuff after a while, and you just want to hear something really direct and something really super aggressive and appeals to a certain emotion.
totally, yeah.
So then I started listening, like most recently, sorry, like I listened to the Embrace record all the time.
Oh yeah, I can never
Um,
really get down with Embrace.
oh
Never
man,
really,
I
really.
love it. The
Rites of
lyric,
Spring is my shit. Embrace,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Something about there's a certain sort of like it's like it's in between Minor Threat and Fugazi,
Right.
and I can get down with Fugazi a little bit sometimes. Like if it's at the right moment, I'll be like, oh, this is the fucking best shit. And then other times I'll be like, this is boring. Like fuck this shit.
It didn't
And then,
age. They were huge for me growing up, and they have not aged great for me.
yeah,
There's a joylessness to it a little bit. It's got this kind
yeah.
of just like I don't know, just something kind of bums me out. But
It twiddles its thumbs a little bit too much or something.
yeah,
I don't know. Like, but I do think sometimes I've been in like a restaurant or a coffee shop where someone's blasting Fugazi. Um, and in those moments I've been like, Fugazi
feeling
rocks.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
right on.
And then I'll go home and I'll just, like put on a Fugazi album and I'll be like, I don't know.
Yeah. It's just in
uh,
that moment. But so
yeah.
so right. So you went back around post hardcore,
Yeah.
prog.
But for me, Prague represents like um going for everything, like doing, like putting everything you have into whatever you're making, like for better or for worse, just throwing it all at the wall.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I think that manifests in different genres of music as well, but to me Prague represented that idea. When
I
I
love
look at,
that.
yeah, when I look at like Mobius, the artist Mobius, or this other heavy metal artist Philip Droulet,
Yeah, I don't
who's
know.
he's another heavy metal guy who's a contemporary of Mobius. When
Well,
I look,
you're saying, sorry, the graphic novel heavy metal?
yeah, yeah, that
Okay,
it
yeah.
was a French comics magazine that came out in the 70s that was like super maximalist artwork. Like every page just like is meant to knock your socks off,
Yeah.
visually and conceptually. And you can look at like Roger Dean's artwork, like the Yes album cover guy,
Hmm.
and he's like a prog. He represents his visual aesthetic. That is prog rock, like
Okay, yeah.
So even though his stuff is more Zen, a little bit more Zen like looking or whatever, but you have these like sci-fi metal, uh, heavy metal artists, heavy metal magazine artists from the
Yeah.
70s, and that's what I've always been trying to push for. Like goal wise, I've always been like, I need to everything I need to tear my soul out every time I'm making something. I need to like go all the way in, reach all the way out,
Yeah.
and put it on the page. And then everything I make has to be better than the last thing I made. So that's to me that's like the spirit of prog.
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, yeah, I've gone way more into that mode. Like for a while, like in my 30s, my whole thing was like compartmentalizing.
Mhm.
Like OG Extra Life though was all about that thing of just everything
Yeah,
maximal, every possible thing that I'm into goes into it every time.
yeah, maximalism. Yeah,
And then in my 30s, I was like, no, I'm gonna do compartmentalized streams. I'm gonna have the more metal thing and the more classical thing. And now it's
yeah,
back. Extra Life's back for this very reason of like
yeah,
the maximum, like yeah, like doesn't necessarily have to be density of notes or sounds, but just density of like ideas and influences, right? But
yeah.
it's cool because
It's
I never really thought of that as prog though. I never really thought of like the idea of prog meaning that exactly. I just know that when I do that, prog comes out, but like I never.
right. Yeah, yeah. There's other ways to do it. There's certainly other ways to do it. It doesn't have to be represented by prog, but I think to me, prog came around at a time when I really needed it. Um, I was in the hardcore scene, and it was super negative. It was kids getting beat up at shows and stuff like that, and I was like, I'm checking out of this. Like, I don't want anything to do with this. And that buddy of mine, who I stopped being friends with, introduced me to King Crimson, and I think it was Lark's Tongue and Aspic,
That's
and
yeah.
he played that I forget the name of the track. Lark's Tongue and Aspic part 1 and 2, right, or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
The big heavy
The
track on
big
it.
boys, yeah.
Yeah, where it goes off at the end and stuff like that. And he was just like in the car with me. He was like, "We have to be listening to this,"
Yeah.
and and I was sat there and I was like, "What the I was into like Zappa and stuff like that in high school, so I liked punk and hardcore, but I also liked Frank Zappa, and I also liked like weird kind of like weirdo stuff like The Residents and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
um, for some reason, complexity didn't occur to me. I liked the closest I got was sort of being blown away by Les Claypool's bass playing,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. That's Prague. I mean, that's definitely honorary Prague or whatever.
He's Prague adjacent.
He's Prague adjacent for sure.
Yeah,
He's like he has ties to Prague.
he definitely listens to Prague.
Oh yeah, for sure. So I mean, did that like kind of so like at that point you're doing you're doing comic books at that point, right?
Yeah.
So it's like does that change does getting into this Prague vibe and your musical,
Yeah,
right?
it totally changes everything because
That changes your aesthetic a little bit.
yeah, I was also listening to like Daniel Johnston a lot and like sort of like outsider like pop music and stuff.
Hmm.
And then when I started veering away from hardcore because I didn't like the scene, I got exposed to King Crimson, the Red, Lark's Tongue and Aspic, and Red, and then I got introduced to Ruins, the Japanese
Oh yeah.
prog band or whatever, and the first Boredoms album. And even though I wouldn't qualify that Boredoms album as prog, I would say like from him and there's a part where it's playing two side times. It's synced up in one time signature and then starts to be two time signatures going like this, like
Okay.
to the point where it loops back and goes back into the same time signature again. On that, I'm pretty sure that happens on that first Boredoms album.
The first which is the first one? I can't like
It's before Chocolate, whatever.
yeah, Chocolate Synthesizer is the one that we used to listen to.
Yeah, it's before that one. I can't remember the name of it, but
Yeah.
it's super noisy but it has that one moment, and I remember listening to that over and over again and being like, "What the fuck are they doing?" Like, and I think actually the Ruins do the same thing on Stonehenge. There's a part where they go into time signatures that keep changing every measure or so to the point until it loops back.
Yeah, it's just like a really long polyrhythm essentially, or like
yeah. And I remember just getting obsessed with this happens to everyone who gets into like math rock and shit. It's like you get obsessed with time signatures, and anyone that's not playing in 4/4 basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then that learning about the ruins, the next step is learning about magma, because ruins were influenced by magma.
Yes.
And then from there it was just like off to the races. It was like you find prog friends who like, oh, you don't know who Henry Cow is or whatever, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this guy Mike Parker who was big in the Philly music scene. I'm sure you talked to him.
The name sounds familiar. Yeah, yeah.
He was like our in-house Avant Gentleman's Lodge like music guru, basically.
Okay, yeah.
He didn't live with us, but he was there almost every day, just hanging out and showing us bands. And his music collection was like enormous, and I learned so much about music just hanging out with him. And he was a nonstop resource for like everything music related and like health related, and like I don't know, he's just one of those guys who had everything dialed in, like
Right,
so,
right.
like
Yeah.
yeah.
So he just progged you out, like took
he
you
progged
like,
me out,
super
and
like next level.
and my art at the time was really personal, like kind of storytelling stuff, where I was just almost like diary like, and like stream of consciousness, things I was thinking about. I wasn't really telling stories. I was more like just like talking about things I was thinking about or documenting breakups and stuff like that. And then when I got deep into Prague, I was like, no, it has to be like, I'm gonna like fuck people up. I want to fuck people up, And
You mean
has,
you mean in a sense like you're for you like the ambition, like
yeah,
the next level of ambition, kind of for you felt that being less like less inward, like less like navel gazing or something, maybe was like
maybe,
part of ambition in a way, or
yeah, maybe a little less navel gazing, more aspirational, and like that. Also, that like where it was like I wanted to get away from this idea in my art, also, especially of feeling negative, I guess. So, because a lot of my art was coming from a super negative place. I for a long time, I thought that depression was integral to art making.
I
I think
know
a lot of
people
people,
think this, it's such bullshit, but everyone
yeah,
thinks it. But it's you just have to deprogram. I still think it,
yeah,
even though I know that it's bullshit. I'm like still trying to clean that out of my brain. Like it is romantic,
yeah. I think it can help. Like it can be a tool, but if it's everything, like you can't, like it's not. If it's all you got, it's gonna you're gonna hit a ceiling, I think.
Yeah.
Some people have made it their entire body of work, and they've made great stuff. But to me, I was like, I can't do this. I need to experiment with this idea of uh, like aspiring to like this high thing. Like,
Yeah,
what am I
something
trying to get to? What am I actually like building up towards,
with
rather
something
than,
outside yourself, either
yeah,
higher or deeper, however you want to do the spatial like
yeah,
metaphor. Because I mean your stuff is all like, I mean if we're talking about forming, and then we're talking about Jesus too. I mean this is mythologies. I mean this is
yeah.
like really like creation myths, you know, like yeah, like really deep, because I want to talk about that in Jesus too, and in forming, just because
Mhm.
like I mean Prague, I guess like Prague gets sort of a rap as having like a sort of fantastical element. People who don't like it don't like that about it, but
Yeah.
it's awesome. Like,
It's
I mean,
awesome, dude.
just
I think John Anderson's lyrics are amazing. Like yeah,
wait, is he the guy from Yes or no? Which,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, dude. When I listen to the lyrics from Awaken, I'm like always inspired. I'm always just like, this is the best shit. Like,
I don't actually know all their, I know Close to
yeah,
the Edge, but I can't like remember that. I don't like internalize the lyrics and stuff.
yeah,
Are they mythological, or like,
yeah. Super spiritual, super cryptic, like very personal to whatever he's thinking about. Like, you can't always figure out exactly what he's talking about, but there's this vibe of him. He's got the highest goal possible. Like, he's like trying to touch God. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, that's what his goal is. And every time I zone in on his lyrics and not just the music or whatever, I tap into that, and I'm like, especially on some of it later stuff, it gets pretty corny. Like it's he became sort of a parody of himself, sort of. But like, uh, yeah, Awaken to me is like, man, like I've like cried listening to Awaken.
Oh shit. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get back into some Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Wait, is that one of the tracks on Close to the Edge? I can't even
No,
remember. Is that
Awaken is on Going for the One.
okay? Yeah, yeah. Because I don't even know that record really.
But it's the
But
same as
yeah.
like what like at that time discovering even just listening to like John Coltrane and stuff. It's the same idea, this like aspiration, like I want to touch the highest consciousness. I want like
Yes,
through
yes.
through my art, I want to get to that point where I'm channeling the original source of creation. Like that should be coming through into my comics, into my stories, and you know, and I think Joseph Campbell and all that kind of stuff unlocked that kind of stuff for me.
Right, right. No, because
And
I know we talked about Campbell a little bit. We talked about Jung
yeah,
a little bit. I think also in reference to well, we were talking a little bit about the tarot deck that you made, which is awesome, and sort of you had like an original take on tarot that's kind of somewhat comic book
yeah,
influenced, right, or animation influenced.
yeah. It's sort of like I can't help but at this point I have like a certain way of drawing, and like it just came out the way it came out with my design sensibilities. Uh, yeah, but that actually, so the tarot deck. Oh yeah, I have it here. Um, yeah, this was like 7-year project or whatever.
Yes, yes.
um, that was based on my interest in the Marseille, the French tarot deck, and me trying to like tap into that ancient sort of like unconscious, collective unconscious, like image making and stuff like that. So I wasn't actually trying to make my own version of it. Essentially, I was like actually trying to be a part of that tradition.
Oh, okay,
Uh,
okay. Is it actually? There was something about it that was non-traditional. Is that
yeah,
it's only major arcana? Is that what
it's
it
only
is?
major
Yeah.
arcana, and maybe someday I'll finish the rest of them. But
The major arcanas.
it,
That's the hot. That's the
yeah, yeah.
that's
I mostly
the
read from yeah, I mostly read from the majors. So
yeah.
um,
Yeah, but like I mean, so because like forming, right? I
mhm.
mean, I like checked out a bunch of forming, but like zipping around, like I didn't go through it all. So this is
Mhm.
like, I mean, anyone that doesn't know, right? So I like, well, I said this before, right? For anyone who doesn't know, right? Forming is this like long. I mean, it's not a graphic novel, right? It's like a series of
Yeah,
books, but originally it wasn't. Was it originally put out as books, or originally it was just online and then
it
it
was
got
just online.
compiled, right?
Yeah, I so this was at a time when web comics were starting to gain some sort of like credibility. Before that, it was like really like the lowest common denominator of people were doing web comics. So the published world of comics really looked down their nose at web comics, and there were a few. It was like one of those things where like the kids were into it, but the older hipster people were like, "That shit sucks. It's
Yeah.
dumb," or whatever. And then we didn't realize that we were actually like falling behind,
Yeah,
and that
exactly. Yeah.
actually webcomics were cool and we should have been doing them. Uh, so I kind of caught on a little bit, maybe in the second wave of webcomics, where a friend of mine was like, you should do, because it was all about finding a publisher back then and courting publishers and stuff.
Yeah.
And I had I had one book published by a small publisher, but it was like, I don't know, man. Yeah, it's one of those things where like no one bought it. I still have boxes of it in my closet,
That's pre-forming. That was
pre-forming.
like
Yeah,
yachts and stuff. Because that was
yeah.
like was that like mythological too? Because like forming, like I kind of want to know what's up with it, and
Hmm.
then kind of go from that into talking about Jesus too.
Yeah,
Like because I mean, it starts with Mithras, right? I mean, like the very
Yeah,
first thing is Mithras. And,
yeah,
I don't know a ton about, I mean, I get all these confused, like the
yeah,
Babylonian gods and then how that relates to like Greek and Roman mythology, like
yeah,
what the overlaps are or aren't. I
yeah.
can't, I mean, does the entire thing of forming, is that outlining myths as they actually are, or were you taking those characters and just doing your own plots with them?
I was vaguely relating myths, like established myths, and then combining it with ancient alien stuff, like conspiracy theories.
Right.
And
Okay.
then because back in the day, this was like 2000, I think I probably started planning forming around 2008, maybe even 2007. I started doing the work to like build this idea. And I was deep into conspiracy, Hollow Earth, ancient aliens. I was deep into Joseph Campbell. I was reading Manly P. Hall,
Yeah.
the LA occultist, and his book, Secret Teachings of All Ages. I still reference that book over and over again, but
We should have
um,
gone to the Philosophical Research Society, you and
I
me.
know I might do a talk there actually. I might
Yeah.
be doing a talk there.
Oh, wasn't Oh no, that was a different thing that I had to miss. But yeah, yeah, you totally should be all over there because that was I went to a couple things there with Kirsten. We went and saw.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I
Uh
visited their library a few times.
yeah, it's
But
awesome.
I might do a tarot talk there. They reached out to me, so we'll see.
Yeah.
But also, I was staying up all night listening to Coast to Coast. Uh, do you ever listen to that conspiracy radio show on AM?
No, no, no.
Oh man, George Norrie and Art Bell were the radio hosts. They I think they're just on the web now. Maybe I haven't listened in years, but I was so deep into conspiracy stuff. And this was
Hollow
back.
Earth, man. I don't know any Hollow Earthers. I mean,
Yeah, I
I,
mean, part of me still hopes, like
I get
hopes.
figured. I know it's like is that even a negative conspiracy? Like is that like what's the conspiracy? Just that it's hollow, or
It's
that
like
people are doing stuff?
Tibetan myths, like Shambhala. Like there's like a paradise underground where giants live, and like these like super advanced beings who escaped the surface years and years, thousands of years ago or something like that. And then
Hmm.
if you go down there, you like never. I mean, there's movies made about it. There's like old old films about Shambhala, and like even now, like there's still it's like part of I think Marvel movies even address it and stuff. Oh yeah, and like the latest King Kong movie like addresses Hollow
Like
Earth stuff.
addresses. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
why
yeah.
didn't you address Hollow Earth? And you
Yeah, yeah. But I would, back in the day, like I was obsessed with this guy, Admiral Byrd, who had done an expedition to the Hollow Earth and stuff, and supposedly found it, and that was like covered up, and all this stuff. I was just deep into conspiracy theories and stuff back
yeah,
then
yeah,
when it
yeah.
was fun,
Back when
and
it was fun. I mean,
yeah, yeah, like didn't have like negative connotation so much. It was more like
it's
X Files
not as
generation.
negative. I honestly, to me, even I keep saying this, like even
Yeah.
the most insane conspiracy theories, even like
Mhm.
the darkest ones, I honestly think most of the time it's like a twisted version of a grain of truth.
Yeah.
Like everything about COVID that I like insane conspiracy theories. I'm like the details of that theory are insane,
Yeah, right.
but you've latched onto something that is fishy, and there's like a reason. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I have a lot of sympathy for insane
Oh, I
conspiracy
have so
theories.
much. I
Like
have so much that this sympathy for anyone that's like, so like feels like there's something else. Like it's sort of like a contrarian mindset, I guess.
yeah, yeah, it's
And
critical thinking. It's just critical
yeah,
thinking taken like off road. Like
yeah, contrarian mindset. Also, like there's an element of magical thinking, which I've always been a fan of. So, like even in my day to day life, people ask me what my spiritual practice is. I don't really have one. Like but I just have magical thinking. That's all. Like it's a certain sort of like just a way of perceiving the things around you and the way you see like mundane events.
Yeah.
as having meaning. And sometimes when you perceive mundane events as having meaning, it can spin you the fuck out, you know. And I've
Yeah.
definitely like had that happen to
Yeah,
me.
yeah. Well,
Um,
there's a fine but beautiful but scary, I think, line between seeing connectedness between things that go beyond cause and effect, synchronicity, this kind
yeah,
of thing. Fine line between that and just being a paranoid schizophrenic. I mean,
right, yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
it's that's that boundaryless. It's
I
just,
think I always have to keep in mind like this idea of like confirmation bias. Like whenever I start to get paranoid or whatever,
mhm.
I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah. If you notice something, you'll start to see it all the time, like that
Right,
kind of thing. And then that doesn't mean that there isn't like counter evidence to whatever you're seeing, you know.
right, right, right.
You just have to like keep that, like ride that line like between having fun and being like grounded. You
Right,
know.
right, right. Every pothole you see is like evidence of hollow earth and shit.
Yeah, is it like I'm always like, is this fun or am I ruining my life? Like that's sort of like
Yeah, that's the internet for me, man. That's
yeah,
been,
yeah.
Twitter, everything. But yeah, like but so you were okay, right? So like
Oh, right, right, right,
so
right.
we're talking about forming, right? So like late aughts, right? You're like webcomic, you're dealing with conspiracy theories, but also like straight up mythology, right? You've got Mithras, Kronos, you've got
Right.
Zeus giving birth to wait, was it Zeus gave birth to Kronos or the other way around out of his head or something, right? Like you had some of
Yeah,
that.
right, right. Yeah, I think at this time I was like really feeling contrarian. Like I was really feeling like and my friends have like told me like this isn't wasn't what was going on. So I've talked about this before. I felt like there was like this movement, this materialist movement happening where it was like we want to prove that life has no meaning, almost like that materialism is the end game for happiness, as in if we change these laws, if we get put this person in office, if we get like economic like equity for whatever equality for everyone, that all our lives will be solved, all happiness will be achieved. And I
Yeah.
was just like, that is not fucking true. Like, you know. and
Right, right.
and I was like, I think this was at the time when atheism, like the atheist edge lord movement was happening, sort of, where it was like, you're retarded if you or whatever. Fuck.
That was it, honestly
If you
of
believe in God or
of
whatever.
all the edge lord movements, the hardcore atheist one is like my
Yeah.
least favorite. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
it's it's
the
it's
Richard Dawkins shit, like all that kind of stuff. Like, I I remember seeing that stuff, and like even like Bill Maher, like seeing him on TV,
oh,
being
I
like,
hate that smug shit. I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
the reason why I hate that kind of that anti-religion, anti like mysticism, I'm like, okay, man. So
yeah,
you're saying that the entire history of mankind
yeah,
before the age of enlightenment,
yeah,
everyone was just a fucking retard. Like, really? You think
yeah,
that? Everyone was just this benighted rube. And then it's
yeah,
just, it's like, an apple falls on Newton's head all of a sudden. Like, people know things. It's like, come on, man.
yeah. So I was really that shit was triggering me hard, like every day for years, like kind of, and I could feel it. I don't know. It's hard. Like, I don't know if I was being paranoid or whatever it was, but I felt this like life force being sucked out of um uh society. I don't know. I just was like being so focused on art, and I was developing in my own process of making art this idea that I was channeling God kind of stuff, like
Yeah.
that I was. This is like where all the people I respected, all the people that I looked up to, that was their process. They were like almost like becoming conduits for this higher intelligence, and I was like, this is the way to me. And then I was feeling all this pressure to be like materialist, and I don't know where that pressure was coming from. No one was specifically telling me like, Jesse, you can't believe in this stuff, blah blah blah. Like a lot of my friends were also into what I was into at the same time. We were
Right.
all exploring these ideas, but from a larger cultural perspective, I felt this pressure to hide it. I don't know, to hide being spiritually minded or having magical thinking or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I was building this resentment, this sort of like this feeling of constraint or constriction. And so that's when I felt like, and at the same time getting into like prog rock and stuff, like all this like these maximalist ideas.
Yeah.
I was like, the next thing I do has to be a statement about my spiritual belief, and 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 not just like my spiritual belief. Maybe belief is the wrong word, but it's like my spiritual interest, and it has to be. It's almost going to catalog, as long as it takes for me to make it. It's going to catalog where I am on that journey. So it's going to like change as it goes. So that's why early on the ideas were sort of like more ancient aliens, like conspiratorial kind of stuff. And then as it went on, it became more about what it means to make art, and the destruction of the body and stuff like that, like the sort of these ideas of like what it means to overcome your physical form and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. So I became obsessed with like just like visualizing human destruction. It's
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or like the destruction of the body and stuff like that, and then also at the same time coming to terms with the material world at the same time, like finding value in our experiences here on the material plane. That's something
Sure.
I like kind of came across later in life, that we're here for a reason, and that we shouldn't like just poo-poo it, you know.
Right, right, right. Right.
Yeah, so all that stuff is like reflected in the work as it goes on. Yeah, and then at the same time, trying to be funny and shit, like trying to make jokes.
That became more of a thing with forming. Because
No, it's always been
it's funny
it's
from the
always been a
beginning.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
no,
mean,
it's always been a
like,
thing.
yeah, like
Yeah,
just the writing, like it's very like, I don't know, it has like just like the snappy, like little quips, of like, it's very like tight, like, good comic book dialogue,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think entertainment is like important.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was no, was there an end, like, because you said like, oh, I still haven't finished it, so like
Yeah.
so it's not like forming wasn't just like a thing that was going to go on indefinitely, like there actually was an end goal, like an end, like what's the final, like is there an overall arc of the whole story, or like, because I couldn't, it
Yeah.
didn't it okay.
Yeah. There's an end. If I wanted to, I could keep going until present day or even into the future, if I wanted to. But actually, sort of Jesus too is sort of like my take on the future, and forming is my take on the past.
Okay,
Um,
okay, okay. So
yeah,
forming is supposed to take us from the beginning of time
yeah.
to now. Is that
The beginning of time to probably like a little post flood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So right now in the book, the flood is happening. The Great Flood, the mythological Noah's Ark flood stuff is happening, and I think it'll end around that time, like when this flood subsides, and then like what happens as a result. All over the place. I mean, there's lots of different threads. It's not tied exclusively to the flood, but the flood is like a big story marker. Um, yeah, and then I'll probably end it because I did do some things afterward. Like I started writing. I had ideas about going all the way up until I was like obsessed with George Washington Carver for a while.
Uh-huh.
So I did a little short story about George Washington Carver. I read his biography and stuff, and like, so he's part of the forming universe originally, like, because there was this whole mythology around him, and I thought he was an interesting
You kind of like
person.
inserted him into like pre-flood,
Yeah, so if you go
like,
to my website, jessemoynihan.com, at the top there's a banner, and there's a little cartoon I did of George Washington Carver as a child in the banner. Um, so he was going to figure into the story, but then I was like, no, I'm cutting it off. I can't go that far. Like I can't go up
It's like
that
too
far.
maximalist. It's like too prog. Like
Well, it's just
you
too
had to
much.
edit something out. You know.
Yeah, I had to put an end date on like when is this story done? And I
Yeah.
decided it would be done around the time of the flood. Uh, yeah.
Right.
So
Well,
I'm close, but like far at the same time.
well, it seems like this like apocalyptic thing seems like part of your vision here, because if the flood is kind of like where this is going to end, it's almost like the inverse where like in Jesus 2, it's almost like you're talking about like people want the flood and they're not getting it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they like want to be washed away, but it's like they just will not be allowed to die or whatever.
Yeah, and then that gets into because later in life I got into like Gnosticism and stuff, and this idea of like what happens when you die? Why were we created? Are we just like a battery for negative energy for demons?
Well, not no, we are not just that. This much we know.
Yeah. But sometimes it feels like that. So, those like the Nag Hammadi or whatever
Yeah,
the like
Nagamati Codex. Yeah, with all that
yeah,
Gnostic. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that
I
shit
was
gets like into gnarly sci-fi, like super negative, like like what we're doing on here, we're fucked kind of stuff.
well.
Like
That's yeah. That did appeal to me a lot about
yeah,
Gnosticism. I mean, this idea, this very negative spirituality, where you're just like, yeah, the thing about like the demiurge,
yeah,
just like that, right? The world being created by this just like jive. Just that the world is just jive,
some jive
basically.
turkey.
Like yeah, it's like this very like Gnosticism is such a like in a cool and a not cool way, but it's like very like arrogant, contemptuous of all the. It's like hater. It's like
Yeah.
magic. It's like
Yeah,
hater
yeah.
mysticism. It's just like
Oh yeah,
yeah,
but it gets confirmed so often. Like you just sit around and you're like the demiurge is like the real shit. Like this is real, man.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
so often you're just
Yeah, the
like the
demiurge. You're like he can't just keep getting away with it, man. He
yeah.
can't just keep just like getting away. But yeah,
Yeah.
like
It
but
makes me
yeah.
like paranoid about dying too. It's like this idea like if there is something that happens like after you die and there's like a tunnel of light or something, and then if you go into the tunnel of light you're just like buying into this like the like aeons, like recycling your soul into this like suffering loop.
Uh-huh.
And 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 then so like what do you like run away from the light? Is that what I'm supposed to do when I die? It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
like
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't. Are you into
yeah.
the Tibetan Book of the Dead?
I've read a bit of it. I did some research on the like Bardo stuff, like and
Yeah, because
when
I
I was
don't know about it. But yeah, that's I mean, it seems like
yeah.
isn't that part of Jesus too or something? I mean, or no, am I just drawing comparisons that
I think that there's this, you know, it's all fun to theorize about because it like the idea of like reincarnation and tearing away of like what you've accomplished and stuff like that in life, like being torn up by demons, being actually like angels, like uh looking out for you and trying to strip away your attachments and stuff like that,
mm-hmm.
and that if you perceive them differently they're actually like saving you. This idea of like being torn apart and the horror being a positive thing uh is like a really fascinating and like and I think relates heavily to the lived life also, so it's like fun to think about those things. And I think actually that movie Jacob's Ladder captures it pretty well.
Oh, did you? That's funny you said that because have you been looking at the comments on the side?
No, I didn't know
Yeah.
there were comments.
Yeah, if you click on comments on the right
Oh,
hand column over there, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, we've got some good comments here. And yeah, Senum,
Oh, Jim Winters, holy shit.
yeah, yeah, you've got homies here. Yeah, Senum wrote Jacob's Ladder like just as you said Jacob's Ladder.
Oh,
So yeah,
okay,
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah.
yeah.
There's a line in Jacob's Ladder that Danny Aiello says, I think, about being torn apart by demons or whatever.
Mm.
And that always stuck with me as being like a super like Tibetan Buddhism kind of like idea.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that you want that.
yeah, you want that. And how do you frame your mind in order to like perceive it correctly, because everything we're doing on the planet right now, like in our lives, is like centered around achieving legacy and all this kind of stuff, like building up your pile of like achievements.
Yeah.
And I'm totally in that fucking
Oh, me too. No, I'm on the grind set,
mindset.
dude. Oh yeah, dude. I'm on my
Yeah,
grind set every day, dude. We're fucking,
yeah.
we're generating
So
content right now, bro. It's all
yeah,
fucking.
it's all like, and I think that's okay. Like you can hold two ideas at the same time. Like I don't think one has to negate the other. I think
Yeah.
you can be interested in both. Establishing like a body of work, respectable work, while also trying to figure out a way to not be so attached to it, or
Yeah, no,
whatever.
it's got to be both. That's the whole that's the irony, the beautiful irony of it all. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
right. So this is another. So Senem earlier asked if he look. He wanted to know, did Jesse help make the story of the Lich King or Lick King from Adventure Time? Since he mentioned death.
No, the Lich King was around before I jumped on Adventure Time. I did work on some heavy Lich King episodes, but I wasn't integral to like the lore of the Lich King. That was more like, although I did help with like the lore of if the Lich King won, and then like what happens in the in the post apocalyptic alternate Adventure Time timeline if the Lich King defeated everyone or whatever. So I worked on that stuff, but that was kind of before that was around the time I was still working on the first volume of Forming. I was kind of like I was working on that show full time and working on my comics at night. That
That's
I don't,
intense. Yeah.
yeah, actually don't. I think I'm doing like I thought I ran out of energy and I couldn't do that kind of thing again, but I guess that's what I'm doing now. It's weird. I've been stuck in that mode for like a year and a half now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, I'll never do that again. I'll never work 80 hours a week again. And I think that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah. I mean, unless but you'll probably you'll get Jesus 2 will pop off in some way of being funded or produced or whatever, and you'll be able to just do that
Yeah,
full time. I'm
maybe,
sure. I'm
maybe.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know what's going to happen. I'd like people do write me. They're like, when are you going to finish Forming? And I just have to apologize to them. I'm like, maybe someday. I don't know. And then they're super nice about it, which is always surprising.
Yeah,
I get
man.
a lot of generosity from the people who follow my work, so it's cool.
Did I like the whole aesthetic? I mean, it's I actually don't know. I mean, people who are in the world of comics and animation, know the stuff. But I mean, you actually almost, I kind of want to get hip to just really basic stuff. Like if you're like the art director, like so you like were writing
Mhm,
for Adventure Time and
mhm.
doing storyboards, is that or no? Writing and
Yeah,
storyboards, and then for Midnight Gospel, you're the art director.
yeah.
What actually are those different roles? I mean, writing, obviously you're writing like the dialogue and the plots and stuff, and like storyboard is just you expressing that, doing still images.
Well, actually, so on it's different on different shows. On Adventure Time, Adventure Time was a storyboard driven show. So we didn't work off scripts. So the writers actually would just write story beat outlines, and then the storyboarders would actually write the dialogue and stage everything. Uh, unless like the writers had a specific joke that they wanted, they would put it in the outline sometimes, and you would incorporate because you wanted to respect the writers. So you would put their jokes in there too, but they weren't scripts. And then what you would do is you'd write it all as a storyboarder, put it up on the wall and sort of act it out in front of them, and then there'd be this back and forth between the writers and the storyboard artists. They'd be
Okay.
like, could you punch up this joke or blah blah blah, like make it maybe more like this and rip it all out and replace it and all that kind of stuff. That was how it worked on that's how it works on a lot of kids shows, because they want it to be a visual, really visual heavy, so they put all the writing responsibility on the storyboarder,
Yeah, well,
because
that's
they're the
fun.
ones.
That's fun as hell, right? That means you like
Yeah,
really are making it happen, like in your role there. Yeah.
right, but the writers are coming up with the premises basically.
Okay. Yeah.
And then for Midnight Gospel, that was just me. I didn't have anything to do with writing that show. It was more like they would tell me what the episodes were about. I would do like research onto like how I could represent, especially Duncan Trussell's ideas, like visually. And then like we did a whole thing about the Bardo, Tibetan Buddhism idea. And so I did all this research on Bardo and the Bardo pond, and then tried to figure out a way to represent that visually. That, you know, so I did all the concept art for it, and I had to direct all the artists like how to paint everything a certain way to look like my drawings, sort of.
I see. Okay, so yeah, so you do it in cartoon form, and then they animate it
Yeah,
based on what? Okay, yeah. So the whole look of that show is you, basically. I mean,
me
that's
and this other person, Ellie Machalka, also was a visual development person on that show. So it was kind of a combo between me collaborating with Ellie Machalka. Yeah, there were some things that she did that were not part of my style.
right,
Um,
right. But it's you two together, and
yeah,
whereas on Adventure Time, that like those visual, I mean that visual, those characters and visual language that had already been established before
yeah,
you came on. Because it's just really interesting to me, because it's like even your stuff before any of this, I mean, just
yeah,
checking out Forming, I'm like, you know, these are all different styles, but it's like in a realm, like
yeah. I
you
think
know,
it's
so
indie comic. It's indie comics. It's like that's where it kind of comes from. Um, yeah, a like that community is where it's like very like interactive. We all kind of interact with each other and sort of like get influenced by each other.
yeah, it kind of seemed that way, like, right, it's just like, yeah,
Heavy influence coming from Rhode Island at that time, like early 2000s.
oh yeah, the whole Fort Thunder
Yep.
lightning bolt. You know, that should have been obvious to me, but it's like I was so there that I like didn't like think about it.
Yeah.
You know, like that whole early 2000s. Yeah, totally. The kind of harsh, psychedelic but harsh kind of
But
yeah,
also
yeah.
into like cute cartoons and stuff, like Ben Jones and Brian Chippendale and like all those guys, CF. Like, yeah, yeah, it's a similar thing where it's like they were influencing a lot of people musically, but also their visual art was like
Yeah.
huge influence on the indie comic scene around like 2005
Right.
era.
It's so interesting because I'm so not part of the comics world or the animation world, but
Yeah,
as being part of the music scene that we were a part of, it's like now I'm like, oh right, like
yeah,
those looks were in the air. You go
yeah.
to you play at whatever like DIY venue, and that would be a lot of the look, you know,
Everyone's
of
wearing
stuff.
like psychedelic, like neon colored, like knit, like full ninja outfits and stuff like that, or whatever.
Yes, yeah. Masks, a lot of
Yeah.
masks, you know, for the. You know whose artwork I kind of is somewhat, it kind of seems like it has something to do with this. Like, are you a fan of John Dwyer's art? Like, just all the like, just all those
Who's
you know what
John
I'm talking
Dwyer?
about? He's a dude from the OCs and like Coach Whips and Pink
John
and
Dwyer.
Brown. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, it's just like it's like big like garage rock musician guy. I don't know.
Okay, I
He
don't
like
know. No, I
yeah.
don't
Yeah,
know.
anyway, I don't know. He does like his drawings are like very
Oh,
like
okay.
kind of remind me of that. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Fort
yeah.
Thunder, legendary. Like, I never actually went up there when that was happening. I had buddies who were going up there a lot to see shows.
Yeah.
Um,
I saw a lightning bolt up there like in was it like 99 maybe or 2000. I
yeah,
remember yeah, they had I think it was at the MoMA they had like a Fort Thunder show in like 2002 or whatever that was like really kind of like a moment for that and stuff. But
yeah.
like
I saw them a bunch of times, but just not in Rhode Island.
yeah.
They came from through Philly a lot.
Yeah,
Them
they were
and
playing.
The Locust and um, yeah, all those. Well, the Locust they weren't Rhode Island, but I feel like they toured together or something
Yeah,
like
no,
that.
there was a lot of connection with that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, that sort of visual language, but yeah, so that kind of like but yeah, it seems like the most like Midnight Gospel is like more extreme or something. than like
Yeah,
Adventure Time. Like
yeah,
it's really like there's a rawness or something, or I don't even know if raw is the right word, but it's like just the way stuff moves and like is dissolved, like just dripping and decaying and all this. It's
yeah.
it's
I
it's
think
like a
well, Midnight Gospel, we wanted to. I specifically wanted to make it look really different from Adventure Time.
yeah.
And I was like, just like for Pence, it was weird. Like me, I was like, Matt Groening, the guy who created The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Everything he does after The Simpsons looks like The Simpsons. It's all within a style like category.
Yeah, Futurama, like you can totally, yeah.
Yeah, and so when Penn was going to do his next big thing, I was like, this can't look like. I want you to like make something that looks really different, um, so that you can. So that hopefully the idea is that he could just keep making projects and not have to be tied to what he's done before. He could keep evolving, and I think
Right.
everything that we do should be different from the last thing we did, right?
Right.
And so I was like, okay, I'll give you like everything, all my tools that I've been working on since, and I'll just put it into this show so that it looks stylistically super different from Adventure Time, and then paves a new path for Penn and also for myself too, to like distinguish, because I'm so tied. Like people have tied me to Adventure Time so much, and for Penn even more. You know what I mean? He
Yeah.
created it. So it's like, okay, this will benefit us both if we just make something totally different.
Yeah,
That was
totally.
the intention, but like Penn still draws the way he draws. He's like a lot of those character designs are his, so they still have that quality. So people have told me, "Oh yeah, it looks like Adventure Time." I'm like, "Fuck," like or whatever.
Well,
But
I mean,
uh,
it looks like it. I mean, yeah, if you zoom out at like all art
yeah,
and stuff that's on TV, it's like, yes, it looks like Adventure Time. But I mean, but watching, I mean, marinating in both of those shows and checking out Forming, it's like within this realm, it's like it is
yeah,
different. It is a new direction. And I guess yeah, because you got in on the ground floor with that, you could sort of set the tone. Right, you were in a spot to steer it and to pull him, to pull
yeah.
him a
And I
little bit
also wanted
differently.
it to be really visually confrontational.
Yeah, it's
So
there's an uncomfortable like Adventure Time is like out there, but the
mhm.
overall feeling is kind of like warm at the
Yeah,
end. Like it's
yeah,
it like feels like I don't know. It's not like unsettling and stuff. Like
yeah,
Midnight Gospel is actually kind of not just psychedelic, but like actually you get that queasy, like when you actually are tripping and it's like just starting to take off and you're just kind of like
yeah.
like that nausea. It's got
Yeah, I wanted it to have the equivalent feeling of like noise music, or like I wanted it to like be doing this all the time. Like either
yes,
it's people say that it's hard to focus on the dialogue or the visuals, and it's hard to do both at the same time. And I was like, yeah, that's good. So that you'll have to watch it a couple times in order to really um, synthesize the two,
yeah,
or like you'll have to get used to it in order to really navigate it.
yeah,
um, and it's sort of like a same thing, contrarian, like what can I get away with, that kind of thing. Oh, these people just threw millions of dollars at this show and they've put me in charge of the visuals, so I'm gonna like try to really go crazy, because it's like
yeah.
every time you get an opportunity like that, you're like, okay, I have to take advantage of this and make the most like difficult thing.
Is it over? Is that it's just that one season?
Yeah, it's over, yeah, as
That's
far
gonna
as I know.
that will not be forgotten. That
Yeah,
little
I hope
run,
not.
dude. The one with you've probably just talked about this a million times. You're sick of it. We don't even need to go. But I mean, the one with Damian Eccles and
Oh
there's
yeah.
like Joey Coco Diaz is one of the fucking people. I watched that. I was like, dude, this is amazing. I mean, and that's I checked that out before I knew you were so heavily involved in that show. Actually, I had just I was put onto it totally independently.
Yeah, I was
But,
working on that Damien Eccles episode for a while, for like months before I realized who it was.
oh yeah,
Um, yeah, because those are all old interviews, like that they reconfigured and then they brought them in to like do extra voices and stuff. Luckily, everyone agreed to do this, So in order to make it work for the show, they recorded fake dialogue on top of the actual legitimate real interviews.
Right, right.
And but Damien Eccles, I didn't know who he was, like, but I was a huge fan of that documentary series, Paradise Lost.
Yeah.
Um, I watched the two of them, and I was obsessed with that story and what happened with those kids. And then I was like, wait, that's the fucking dude. Is he out of jail? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I hadn't followed up with it, so it was like interesting to know I was working on this thing that was involved this guy
Yeah,
who had.
yeah. And I mean, back to magic. It's like you can't escape. You can't escape from that you're just dealing with magic. This is like on
Yeah,
some
it
level,
adds another knowing like his history and his, and then him getting so deep into magic, like in order to like survive prison, basically.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, is an really interesting story.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's high, it's fucking high stakes, man. It's high
yeah, I
stakes.
can't. Yeah, that guy must be. He's like a psychological minefield. It must be like, like the survival tactics you need to
Right. That
protect
you,
yourself. And
yeah, 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 for sure. But that's
yeah,
like, so like, all right, so tell me this, right? So now getting to Jesus too, is
yeah,
this like aesthetically? Are you just taking it like, what's the direction for this? I mean, you've seen. We'll put links below this to
yeah.
the promo, right? You've got like a promo video for Jesus too, for like for
Uh, yes, I do. Yeah, I did make a promo video while just explaining the story, but I managed to fund like all the animation and stuff, so that it's being made right now.
oh,
And
it's
I
on, it's happening. It's completely.
not completely, like I'm still trying to raise funds for the post production aspect of it, like all the After Effects and stuff, and hiring a composer and a sound effects guy, and blah blah blah, and an editor and stuff like that. So I still need to raise funds for that part, but it's being animated, so that part it will be
It's
done.
on. Yeah, I didn't even know that. I didn't know it
Yeah,
was that far along. That's awesome. So yeah, what's the look? I mean, is it like on some way different
it
vibe, or you kind of?
a little bit different. Like, so I took all the lessons I learned from Midnight Gospel, and Midnight Gospel ended a couple, what came out in 2019, I think. So it's been like what, 4 years,
4
3 years.
now. It's crazy. Yeah, 4 years now.
Fuck,
Isn't that nuts? Yeah.
fuck my life, dude.
Dude.
Anyway, so so
Yeah.
I took all the lessons I learned from Midnight Gospel, all the successes and failures, and things I learned from, and been like, maybe I should do this. Like thinking about it for a couple of years, and I've just been developing my style to like surpass that. To like go, all the things that like, even there were things that. So the other person I worked with, Ellie, who is the viz dev person on it, who helped me develop a lot of visual ideas for that show. We disagreed a lot actually on the approach to Midnight Gospel, and she came from a more traditional Disney art design background, and I came from indie comics, from Fort Thunder, like visual noise sort of background. And she actually taught me, like, even though we argued a lot, she actually taught me a lot. And so I took a lot of those lessons. I don't know if we've ever, like, someday I'll have to take her out to lunch and be like, hey, listen, all those times we disagreed, I actually like got a lot out of
I'm
that.
sure she did too, man. That's how it goes. That's
Yeah,
real disagreement. You got to have some conflict, for the richness,
yeah,
for the growth.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I took, from our disagreements, I actually like sat and thought about them for a couple of years, and came out with this new iteration of myself, basically based around a lot of the things she taught me. So I think I've evolved, especially as like a painter, since then. So that stuff is all in the Jesus 2 stuff, and I think people are seeing. I'm starting to post like little bits on my Instagram and stuff, and I have a Discord where I post stuff all the time. Um, but I think that stuff is like a step up from where I've been before. I think craft wise and like visual impact wise, I think it's.
And so actually that like Disney or whatever, that type of background, that actually was kind of you absorb that to some extent on like a,
Yeah, to some extent.
is it slicker? Does it make it a little bit slick or like
I
a little
think it's
like,
more slick. It's more
yeah.
slick and more. There's more. I've gotten more into like light and dark, like contrasting and stuff like that, and like guiding the eye more into areas that I want people to focus on,
Mm.
rather than everything just being flat, straight, like noise all the time. Um, yeah, I kind of like learned some of those tricks.
Visual
Uh,
noise, is that a term?
yeah,
I only heard you just say that now. Is that
that's the
people
way
say that?
that's the way I describe it. I don't know. When your eye doesn't know what to focus on, it's all just like the same of amount of like maximalist imagery, which is usually how I do things. Now I'm trying to focus on like where do you want the audience to automatically look?
Right, 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 right,
Um,
right. But yeah, but in Midnight Gospel, that was more the vibe. Is the not knowing where to focus. Would you
yeah,
say like those old like what is that like Bruegel, right? Is that like, I mean, is that kind of stuff? Do you find
I
that to be visually noisy?
I don't
Like,
know Bruegel.
oh yeah, no, just like I don't know, like he's like a Renaissance painter, right? Like
Oh,
you
okay.
you 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 know that stuff, all that like hell world stuff with all these
Oh
people
yeah,
running
sure.
around getting there's this like just tons of information on the
I still love
canvas,
that. I still
just
love that stuff. I still love the idea that if you look at something, you don't know where to look,
yeah, yeah.
and you got to kind of piece it out as an audience. Like as the audience, you have to just figure it out. That to me, that like there's more interaction between the creator and the like receiver or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the Disney style feels manipulative. It feels like you're forcing the hand, forcing the eye, and taking away some of the work from the audience. But there's sometimes you want to do that. I don't know. It depends on what you want to do. Do you really want to guide um, the story, or do you want the story to be open
Yeah.
and people, And I toggle between those two things. It depends on how in the moment, like, do there's a give and take between the someone making something. Like, do you want to troll your audience or do you want to handhold your audience? Like, it's sort of, and then you kind of
Right.
you can
Troll
do both. You can do
troll or
both.
handhold. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, well
yeah,
right, you handhold people to a certain level and then fuck with them there. I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think you
like
got to have both tools. I think it's not, you don't have to have anything, but I'm right now. I like this idea of having two tools. Like, my natural inclination is to troll the audience, and the other part is like I want to like bring them along my journey, like handhold them through my journey, kind of.
mhm.
And those two things, like battling it out, those two impulses or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah, and it's always been that way. Always like a certain sort of like resentment and a certain sort of like wanting to connect.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, pushing people away, but then being sad when they don't come back, It's
Yeah, why don't
like
you like me? Why don't you like me? Oh, because I've been playing tricks on you this whole time.
Yeah, I mean that's the avant gentleman's condition,
Yeah,
the
it's a contrarian mindset or whatever it
yeah,
is. Like,
yeah, yeah.
that's all. I don't trust anybody. I can only trust myself.
Right. But
Like
yet I
that.
want you to trust me as a viewer, as a
Yeah, but
viewer for
why don't
some
you
reason.
trust me?
Right, 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 right.
Yeah,
Well, then again, to not handhold someone, you're
mhm.
trusting them. That's showing them some trust. To not guide someone's eye.
Yeah.
You,
I
you're
think that.
you're trusting them to look in the for themselves. So there's some trust
Yeah.
there in a way.
Well, me as a spectator, be it from my point of view, as a fan or whatever, as someone who appreciates other people's stuff, I want to be trolled. Like, I want to be, I want them to fuck with me. The more the better, almost.
Yeah,
Like, the
yeah,
more
yeah.
surprise, the novelty of shock and awe, surprise, and that kind of thing. That's always what I'm looking for from someone else.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
either like insane rigor or in like or like the unexpected, basically. Everything else, if it's something I expect or I know is coming, I'm so bored,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's why I wouldn't have, I'm not a super visual person in the sense that like I didn't even think like when you said that like in Midnight Gospel your eye doesn't know where to go. I'm like, right, that's totally what my experience was. But I
Yeah.
didn't even know how to articulate that. Like I wouldn't
Yeah.
have even I just had this feeling of disorientation. It's demanding. Like I mean
Yeah.
it demands a certain, and I wasn't even aware that that's what's being demanded, that I decide where my eye goes, you know? Like
Yeah.
you have to make decisions, you know?
That's all like shop talk, It's like if you're a cartoonist.
Right.
Yeah. There's no reason why you should
Yeah, no, but
like
it's
have
it's
that.
just it's just interesting though. You know, it's like when someone who like isn't a musician, doesn't know about music, you know, they're just like they have this like totally gestalt, like this overall gestalt experience of something, you know. And
Yeah.
if you're a
I mean, I think
musician,
I
you
have
know,
that. I have that because I'm sort of an outsider when it comes to music. Like
are
I'm
you
just
really? You're not trained at all in that
not
stuff?
really.
No.
No, so I don't even know how to talk about like when I'm talking to someone who really knows about music, I don't know how to talk about it. Like I get like I start to freeze up. So I'm like, I'm gonna say something really fucking dumb right now, you know? Even though I love me, I focused and love playing music and love listening to music, and think about it a lot. And I know what I like and I know what I respond to, and you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I can't speak about music theoretically,
Yeah.
and I can't speak about art theoretically either. Really, like when I everything is self-taught in some way. Like I come from comics, so I come from the dumbest, lowest, like most lowbrow part of art making. Kids cartoons and comics
Right.
is the lowest form.
I
You
mean,
know?
traditionally, right? I think
Yeah,
it's those lines are blurring though now, right? I mean, people like you go to art
yeah,
school to study, you know. Yeah.
yeah. But I remember hanging out with Cooper Union kids and like feeling like an idiot.
Oh
Like
yeah, right.
you know,
And what are they doing now? I don't know.
I
Whatever.
don't know.
Maybe running the world. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
they might have like gotten into I don't know what I have no idea. Yeah.
do you like are you ever going to score your own work and stuff? I mean, because you're talking. I mean, you could, or are you
I
not? Are you not that in music at this point?
well, I made a short called Manly back in like 2015. That's on YouTube, and my brother and I scored that. And that was when I was really I was still recording and writing music all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I have gotten so far out of doing any music. Um, it's really sad. I actually bought a bass a
Tight.
couple months ago. I had bought a bass. I haven't played it. It's just sitting
Well,
here.
dude, you've got
Uh,
plenty on your plate. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
I've got books I'm supposed to be reading that's not happening. I mean, there's
yeah.
just, yeah. I mean,
My brother and I we reformed the band right before the pandemic, like a
that's
year
right.
ago.
That's right. You're telling me about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we hired well, not hired. We got a bunch of our LA friends to join, people we knew who could like sing and play instruments and stuff like that. And we just started writing new songs. And we recorded like three quarters of a new album. And we were in the studio in Joshua Tree. Our friend has a studio in Joshua Tree. When the notice came down to like lock everything down, it was like we were at the studio and
Yeah.
our engineer was like, can we not go get pizza? Like what, you know?
Yeah. Just suddenly, it's crazy. No, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I haven't touched that album since. It's been a couple of years now.
Oh, is
It's
that
just
well? But yeah, because you guys got back together, or you had a long one that you were finishing in like 2015 or something. You put it out, right?
I was recording like bedroom recording for a while and putting out songs here and there. And we have all this like unfinished shit. And I actually lost that hard drive. That I mean, I didn't lose it. The hard drive broke that had all that music on it.
Oh yeah, I hate that. Yeah.
And I couldn't recover it. And actually it was a relief because actually that music wasn't that great. It was like you know what happens when you like aren't playing with you there's a difference between playing with a band and like going through songs and just rehearsing and just home recording, and it takes something happens, at least on my end. I couldn't capture the energy of I couldn't capture that feeling
Yeah, there's a certain
Uh,
type of energy. Yeah, no, when you do stuff collectively and live in the room and all that, you know.
yeah, things happen even when you get like, so none of us are that good. Like that's the other thing about Make a Rising. We're all not that great, like players. The thing that people always pointed out to us was it was like you look like you're struggling to play your own song. Like you're really,
It,
that
it,
tension of can they actually play their own songs, like like that kind of thing.
it's sort of had that, but then it also had that vibe of like you clearly rehearse a ton,
Yeah, yeah,
right? It's like
yeah.
that thing of like not insane chops as individuals, but
Yeah.
insanely rehearsed band,
Yeah,
you know.
right.
So
There,
it's
so
tight.
many, dude. You didn't see all the meltdown shows we've had, like back in the day, like
Nah,
just
I
complete.
didn't. I remember it being very tight. I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah.
Well, we weren't. None of us were that good. We were never technically very good. We couldn't sing, like all this kind of shit. Like
Right.
I was a self-taught guitar player. Like I couldn't like I barely knew chords. I just memorized like shapes, and
Yeah, that's the
yeah,
best way to do it,
and the and the
actually.
and the other guy in the band who actually could play guitar better than me would tell me what chords I was playing. So I would come in, write a song, and be like, "This song is this." I don't know what chord. Tell me what chords I'm playing. You're gonna have to figure it out. Like, So that's
Right,
the way
right.
I wrote music. Um, but fuck, how did I get off on this tangent?
Oh, just because I was just asking you about if you're gonna like do some if you were gonna score any of your own
Oh, right.
stuff, and you
So
said you had this short called Manly, right? This like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So that's the last
yeah,
thing I scored,
yeah,
and
and that
ever
was that with Make a Rising, or was that just you solo,
it,
or
it
yeah,
was basically we called it Make a Rising, but it was basically me and Justin.
okay, yeah,
My brother lives next door to me, so actually Justin plays piano. I was listening to him. I can hear him playing piano. He plays piano every day, and I haven't picked up my violin in probably 2 years.
mm,
Um, but yeah, which is sad. But I'm just I don't know. What can I do? We keep talking about it. We keep being like, let's get it back together. Let's start rehearsing again, and hopefully, I mean, I think our new songs are really good. I'm really happy with them. It's more laid back. It's a little bit more like chill. So it'd be
yeah,
like vibe wise, it sounds different than our older stuff. It's more, it's I don't know. I guess
yeah. Well,
maybe
you get
more out
older, it's
west.
less,
Yeah,
yeah,
West Coast vibes. I don't
yeah.
know.
I was just saying age. I mean, it's just less about piss and vinegar, you know. But
Yeah, I don't have
yeah,
that. It's weird. Like writing music back then, it also you get into that mindset. Like I'm gonna prove it. Probably you still have that when it comes to music. You have that I'm gonna prove it feeling. I'm guessing.
wait, how do you mean? Like you mean like I'm gonna fuck people up? They're not even
Yeah,
ready, like that
you're
kind of
not even
attitude.
you're not even ready for this shit. Like
Well,
they
that's like, well, yeah, that was in every recording session I've ever done. Yeah, cats aren't ready is always the
yeah,
fucking
yeah,
thing. It's just
yeah,
you cats aren't even fucking ready. They're not even fucking ready.
yeah.
I
That's how it
mean,
used to be for me with Make a Rising,
well,
and
I
now it's more
mean,
like just having fun. I'm just like I like this,
right, right, right. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
it can be both. I mean, yeah, I still always have the thing of like cats aren't ready. I'm gonna fuck them up. But
yeah,
the music doesn't necessarily always sound like that. You
yeah,
know, I think my
yeah,
stuff in my 20s, especially writing stuff for Z's, but early Extra Life, it like sounded very overtly like I'm trying to blow your fucking mind. You know what I mean? Whereas
yeah.
now, yeah, I'm still into the trying to blow minds, but it might come out a little more, I don't know, might have more equanimity or sound that way or something.
Well, I think it's good to have that all the way through. I don't know. I mean, there are people who get into this like later stage career mindset, like whoop.
Someone is at the door, and I don't know why that is. You know what? I'm gonna not get it. I think it's
Okay,
Amazon, and I just yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
But I think about what's his name? The guy who directed he directed Blood of a Poet. He was a film director. He was a French surrealist film director. Blood of a Poet, Orpheus, and Testament of Orpheus. How come I can't remember his name?
I feel like I should know this. What is that? Artaud, or what is it? Like, what are you talking about? Like,
No, it's damn it. Maybe if someone in the chat knows.
yeah, who knows
Anyway,
this?
or Orpheus Orpheus Blood of a Poet was like his cats aren't ready, kind of thing. And then Orpheus was like he's mastered the craft, and he's made this like thing that like cut through to a larger audience, but still had all the DNA of his his earlier like Cats Aren't Ready vibe. Jean Cocteau, yeah.
There we go.
And then Testament of Orpheus is him like he's accepted himself, and he still has all that stuff, but he's kind of like sat back and is like, I'm gonna go at my pace.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna do it. And this is like the wise version of me or whatever, but it's still like challenging,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Late work. I mean, that's a whole
Yeah.
thing. People have written, Adorno has written about like late work, it's like a whole like,
Yeah,
yeah.
do you think about late work a lot? Like
I have been a little bit. I mean,
yeah.
but the thing is, it's like if I live another 40 years, 50
Yeah.
years, and I'm making work up until I die, then this right now will not be late work. If I die next week, God forbid, then it's,
Yeah.
the last extra life is late work. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I always, it's always think it's like how good of an idea is it to even think about your own stuff in such self-conscious terms, analyzing your own what phase you're in. It's inevitable though to think that way,
Well,
so.
I think about it because I'm so disappointed in so many artists like late work, and that the ones who really impress in their later years, I like take note.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Where I'm like,
classical composers fucking mature. I mean, like late
yeah,
Feldman, late Beethoven. I mean, people like,
yeah,
I mean, the thing I think about with late work is this is
yeah,
just straight biological. Having painted myself into the corner of being a
hmm
singer,
hmm
where my instrument is this fucking fragile ass thing here.
yeah,
It's like I'm already losing some range. 10
yeah,
years from now, you can hear, it ain't the same.
yeah,
And eventually I'm just gonna be an old man.
right.
It's gonna have to.
You're gonna be singing one note like Leonard Cohen.
Yeah, no, yeah. Like he was. That's the thing. He was ready to do late work early
Yeah,
on because
yeah,
of
yeah,
what the music is.
yeah,
But
yeah.
like but yeah, I mean, just realizing like it's gonna have to change no matter what. So I'm not gonna just be like writing.
hmm
I'm not just gonna be doing the same stuff, but like with a more gravelly voice. It's gonna have to be like,
Well,
actually
my
change
thing
things.
is like I'm actually thinking about my exit plan from drawing.
No
Um,
shit.
yeah, I mean, not anytime soon, but maybe in the next like 20 years or something, like 20 years from now or something like that. I mean,
Okay.
it could be sooner depending on what happens with AI. But my exit plan, like career wise, um, is going to be I have this like fantasy of being an installation artist and just
Okay.
making my own version of Jesse's Ascension to Heaven Chuck E. Cheese uh, roller coaster ride in some warehouse in some cheap part of America or something, where
Okay.
I charge tickets and I'm like, get on this thing. I'm gonna fucking blow your mind with my Chuck E. Cheese installation. you know, that's my exit plan
Yeah,
right
like
now. Anyway.
way out in the middle of nowhere, but it's like a destination thing for
Yeah.
for young people to go, and they do acid and like get on the crazy. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, and then I keep working on it and like tweaking it for the rest of my life until I die. That's a it's this one thing that I keep changing, and every season it's like slightly different.
It's funny
Uh,
that would be a fallback plan.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
because
It's like that's your plan B.
yeah, that's like because it's like AI can't afford to do that. Like they can't move into the physical space yet. Making a robot that makes stuff is takes up too much energy resource.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's actually like financially not worth it for them to make robotic installations or whatever.
So you
Right?
actually feel so you actually are feeling the AI threat to an extent where you're like ready to because I'm just putting it out of my mind because I'm like I
Yeah.
literally don't have the type of brain that
Yeah.
can like think about the implications like practically of what that's going to be like for music and art and
Well,
stuff. But like, are
I
you
think
you're already
politically, I think it's going to apocalyptize the planet in about 4 years. I think we're fucked, like deep fakes and all that shit.
I've
But
thought about the deep fake tipping point. Yeah,
yeah,
once you can just see like convincing pornography of every single politician,
yeah,
like that's it. Like that's the
yeah.
end, you
So
know.
that aside, like I'm not even trying to worry about that because that's just going to happen. Whatever that is, like I have no power over that. That's just a genie out of the bottle. It's just whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's not even worth me sweating bullets about. But I
Yeah.
do think we're fucked. I do think probably we're fucked. But as far as like it replacing artists, I think um I don't know. For me, like I also can't worry about it too much because my whole life is based around the struggle of making creative stuff. And so that's the point of my life, I think. I'm pretty sure, at least a major portion of it. And so I'm just going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be able to make a living off of it in 20 years. We'll see if we get totally replaced or if the develops this like boutique. So like we want to see what humans can do,
It
like
can still do. Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know that kind of thing. So whole fingers crossed, like people still care about seeing a reflection of their capabilities or like examples of like what someone can do creatively or physically, like the reason why we watch basketball or whatever, like we want to see what the human
Yeah.
body can do. um, and then that's why we appreciate music and the things people make
Yeah,
and
yeah.
art, because it's a reflection of like I could, if I put my heart and soul into this, maybe I could have done that kind of thing. Like a reflection of like the human potential. I think that's a part of it's a sort of like a narcissistic, like self-reflective kind of thing. Like so as long as people care about that sort of thing, I think there'll be a place for us. um
Yeah, I mean, it seems like musicians don't. I don't hear people expressing anxiety about AI replacing like songwriters and stuff. And I mean, they do have algorithmic stuff where like these things can generate.
the Jay-Z bot or
Right,
whatever.
right, right. The Jay-Z bot, or like, I mean, I heard some shit where like even just on some purely instrumental stuff. I mean, I heard
Yeah,
something. I don't know if it was Bach or like it might have been Bach or like maybe Beethoven, like something where it was like, yeah,
yeah,
the bot had learned harmonic and melodic habits
yeah,
and was spitting out this stuff that was not beautiful, but it was
yeah,
like this is kind of sounding like Bach, sort like I
yeah.
felt a little bit of the vertigo there, but
You know what?
still,
I
you know,
I I think I'll be comfortable with AI when AI starts to reflect on itself rather than reflect on humanity. So, what we do as people is a reflection of the human experience and the history of being a human. And if AI can be programmed to actually only reflect on itself and what it means to be AI, then that'll be like a whole separate like race, basically, or
right.
species that we can observe from the outside and be like, look at how AI um,
Well, but they don't.
is talking about itself or reflecting on its own history or whatever,
But
rather than reflecting on human history. You know?
reflecting though, I mean, does AI is, quote unquote, like reflecting or like questioning its own meaning, is that even a function of
Yeah.
AI, right? Like, isn't it just kind of like predicting stuff based on statistics, kind of? Like, isn't it,
Well, I
right? It's
saw
like,
someone run an experiment recently where they did a combo of like Midjourney, ChatGPT, and some other AI program things. They were like, describe yourself, and then like represent that visually, and then represent that as what that means like musically or blah, blah. And it kept like it's all about talking about itself rather than talking about something some human has done,
mm-hmm.
And it came out with this like visual sort of looked like weird like lawnmower man, like like stock graph kind of thing, weird combo of
Oh,
like old school like CG spheres with like like numbers running, like sort of like the Matrix or Lawnmower Man kind of thing. And I was like, but that I don't know like how genuine that process was, but it was the first
Right.
time. It was the first time I saw some AI shit where I was like, that's kind of like at least that's the right direction, I think, as far as like AI goes. Like stay in your lane, kind of. You know what I mean? Like don't
Yeah.
bother. Like you're gonna surpass us in every way at some point. So just like leave us alone. You know, like I don't know. That's like how I feel about it. Like
Yeah.
let us compete in our own against humans, and the AI
Right.
can compete with AI. You know, and
But
then
isn't
just
it, yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I mean, isn't it just us all being online and like ingesting information and having our brains kind of, not even brain like washing necessarily, but just
yeah,
having all our thought patterns and reward structures and everything plugged into this algorithms and shit online? I mean, we're already kind of like, we already can't really disentangle, like,
right. That's the
like
transhumanism. Like,
the
all,
transhumanism of it, where, see, my thing is like, I'm not super alarmed about
mhm,
where that's going. I'm just
mhm.
alarmed at that it's accelerating in speed, because it just means I'm not going to be able to keep up with how to collaborate with this stuff. You know what I mean? That's all that concerns me. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? If like AI and people are just like this weird blended hybrid race, in 100 years, like, that doesn't
Yeah,
upset me. It just upsets me if I can't hang, like,
right.
because it's just going too fast. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like
I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying not to. Every once in a while, something like this will happen where I feel like I'm drawing a line in the sand, and then, but then what ends up happening is I start thinking about it so much, and it's like usually this is people have said this about me is like if I hate something, I'll probably start to like it eventually.
yeah,
You know, that's like I don't know why that is a trend I have where it's like, man, this shit's fucking stupid, and then like next week I'm doing it. You know,
yeah, yeah. Well, that's
so
the experimental musician,
yeah.
thing where yeah, you hate something and then you just keep thinking about it and you want to like,
Yeah, you think about it until the point where you understand it.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's like you don't want to be defeated. You're like, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
let that thing have that power over me of me not liking it. I'm gonna
Yeah,
own
yeah.
it by liking it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so we'll see. The transhumanism stuff, the only thing that really scares me about that stuff is is this idea of like uploading consciousness to a server or whatever. I don't even know if that's possible. Like people
Do
talk about that.
people, yeah, are people talking about it like it could happen? Because
I
that doesn't
mean,
make sense to me. That
I think like all of those dudes like Vitalik and stuff think that they can do it. Like the like creator of Ethereum or whatever. He like
oh yeah,
thinks,
yeah,
yeah, he probably thinks he can upload his consciousness to a server at some point before he checks out. But then
yeah,
that to me that like the fear of that, I mean, that's sort of like this same thing I've explored with Jesus too, is just like the like intentional vampire life, like vampirism. Uh, there's a connection between that, the tech wanting to like upload consciousness, and this old like new age idea of like transmuting the soul, like immortal, like immortalizing your soul. I read this thing that Gurdjieff wrote years ago uh, about some breathing or meditation technique he had about crystallizing his soul so he would become immortal or whatever. And then I read someone else describing how misguided that was,
yeah.
and that actually he's like trapped himself in this eternal prison. And that's the way I think about people uploading themselves to a server or their memories to a server, uh, being this like vampire trap. You're basically stuck in a coffin for eternity or for as long as the servers run. So all you can hope for is that like they run out of energy on the planet and they shut down the servers. You
Yeah,
know?
you're not. It won't be your consciousness. It'll be this AI thing
Yeah, it's
that's
almost like a
based on this imprint of your. You know what
yeah.
I'm
The best
saying?
they
Like,
can do is copy paste. I think, like copy paste your memories or something in
but
your
even
behavior.
that, even what is your memory? Like,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. I think it's like a lot of it. I think is bullshit. It's like science fiction bullshit.
Yeah, so, some of this stuff, it's like, it's not even like I object. It's not like you can't quantify X, Y, Z. It's like if you can, fine, let's do it. But it's
Yeah,
just, yeah. I mean, the idea that consciousness is just this thing that you can copy paste, like I don't, that doesn't make any sense to me. But I mean,
yeah,
but I mean, just on the like, yeah, I mean, just on the level of our creative fields, it seems it must be weird as a visual artist to see a lot of this AI art come out. I mean, it must just be weird to like, because like whatever examples of the musical version of this AI shit, that's not really making the rounds that much. And you have to click on it and listen. It's not like
yeah.
just these images, like these AI art images that are just now popping up. That just must feel weird, like really encroachment, right? Or like,
Yeah, I could feel the dividing lines like in the art community as far as like who is embracing it, using it to like help quickly iterate visual development stuff, and then who was like, yo, this shit's scary, really scary, and actually like my livelihood is being threatened.
yeah,
And that especially for people who do like visual development, I think, and people who are like background artists on cartoons and all this kind of stuff, even animators and storyboard artists and stuff like that, it's going to get to a point where it probably can do all that stuff. And so like where are we going to go, and how are we going to like, are we just going to be inputting prompts for these, like is that going to be my job, is a prompt guy like in 5 years? I don't, I will say like I have used, here's my cynical, my sort of cynical take on this stuff. I've used ChatGPT to write copy for like applying for like grants and stuff, like, you know what I mean? Like I've used ChatGPT for like breaking down like all my lore and all my story ideas into like a digestible pitch thing to like give to someone so that they can understand my ideas
yeah,
in the
good.
most like in,
It should serve you that way. Yeah,
yeah, because I'm like, I hate doing that. It's actually emotional abuse on me
yeah. It's
to
not
have to
creative. Yeah.
yeah, to have to do that. So if I can get an AI person to be like, yeah, this is how I actually wrote a thing. All my ideas, like I plugged into ChatGPT and I was like, reformat this in a 5-minute presentation as if I was pitching this to Shark Tank. And it
And they
did.
just could do that?
Yeah, I had to like tweak it a little bit, but it basically broke it down into like a less than 5-minute presentation.
Dude,
I
that's
added a
crazy.
few things to it, and I was like, this is useful. This is like,
Yeah.
um, like because this is all inhumane shit that we have to do in order to get funding, sometimes, or get like large companies interested in what we're doing because that's
Yeah.
how they speak. They're emotionally.
I hate pitches, man. I hate
Uh,
any just taking what you do. You're like, let me demystify this. Let me just strip all mystery away from it so that I can just like tell you, yeah, it's like
Yeah, and let me make this sound like I'm not the person I am. Like,
right, right.
let me like make this sound like I'm like the equivalent of Starbucks or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like not so that you don't feel like you're gonna lose your job by supporting me. Like
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what right. It's not even like I have to convince you. It's like I have to give you stuff that you can convince someone else of, Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. Like, I haven't had that much experience with record labels and stuff like that, but like, I don't know if that's
Yeah, I'm not even thinking about record labels. I'm more thinking about like applying for like composer grant, like that type of
yeah.
like experimental music, new
My
music,
friend, yeah.
institutional funding and stuff. Like you've got to be able to be like, you can't just have something awesome. You have to be like, this is, this is the discourse that will surround this. I'm going to control the discourse that this is going to like provide.
Yeah, and you can plug in all the keywords that they look for in those, in those sorts of applications.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like hit
So
all the key point, all the shit that makes you shiver inside, all the stuff that makes you like want to die.
yeah,
You can
just
you can
let
make AI like you can take one step away from that process and have ChatGPT do it for you.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's what
so
I'll have to do. I'll have to like the next extra life thing. I'll be like, ChatGPT, how does this project further social justice?
Right.
It'll
Yeah,
be
no.
like, it doesn't, no grant. It's
No,
like,
ChatGPT will find a way to make
yeah, you
your
gotta hook
thing
me
like
up.
feel like it's serving society in some way, not
An
just like
AI.
pure art.
Yeah.
But yeah, like my buddy, who's an experimental documentary filmmaker, he just applied for a grant using ChatGPT to help him format his application.
Okay. All right.
So to me, in that way, like to me, because that process is so inhumane. I guess I've already said that, but like, um, to me, I'm like, yeah, let a robot handle it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so in that way,
it'll be fine. It'll be. I don't have it. I don't have this total anxiety about the stuff. I'm just, but I do wonder if other people do, and
yeah, Element for Nativity said been thinking about using ChatGPT for job applications, and I think that's like the perfect use case
yeah,
for me anyway.
yeah,
Anything that's like not creative and it's just like, you know, it's busy work that takes up your like time that you could be using towards creating stuff.
yeah.
It's
No,
like
for
if
real.
so in that way, it's yeah, it's cool. I'm trying to embrace that aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Word. Well, let's see. Let's. I think we can kind of get to sort of winding down, unless there's
yeah.
sort of unless there's some outstanding questions here that we didn't really get to. But I think, yeah, I think the only real questions were from Senum that we addressed. I'm looking here. Yeah, yeah, I think we got to everyone's concerns. Um,
Yeah, I think
yeah, man.
we covered some topics.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
we could always go 3-4 hours and stuff, but yeah, been trying to
yeah,
cap it at 2 nowadays.
yeah,
But
man.
dude, thank you so much. Oh, last minute we've
All
got
right.
next Tuesday asks, "Hi Jesse, how do you envision the story from an outline?" Let's answer that. I
Um,
like that.
so well, I think you get usually when you come up with a story, for me, it's like maybe two two sentences or something, like three sentences, maybe like so and so wants this, but this is in the way, so they have to do this to solve it. That's like the basic like setting up a conflict and setting up a way to overcome the conflict and what the person needs on the other. It's like really basic, like so and so needs to get bread for his mom, but there's a huge hill in the way that's impossible to climb. So how does he? What does he have to do to get over this hill and then get back home to feed his mom the bread because they're starving, or whatever, And then from there, you establish the conflict, and then it's for me, it's that automatic writing. Like that's what I do. To me, it's all just like intuition based
Like
around a structure, an easy structure to like understand.
you mean you
Uh,
get that you come up with that really distilled 2 sentence thing, and then from that you go just like no editing, just
yeah,
like
just
for
go
almost
go
free
off.
association. Yeah.
Yeah. You just go like the most exciting thing. Like to me, it's shock and awe. That's like the two things. Like I'm like, while I'm writing this, am I laughing? Am I afraid of what I'm writing or whatever, and then am I surprising myself? And then if I imagine seeing this like realized, would I be psyched on it? If I was just an audience, if I was in the audience, would I be like, that shit rules?
Yeah.
And then that's how I determine what the story is basically, or what the details of the story are. So it's like building shock and awe around a really basic um, story structure of like what the character wants, why they can't get it, and what they have to do to get it, basically. Um, yeah, that's how I build outlines usually. And sometimes all the intuitive like shock and awe stuff will convolute the story a bit, like will make it kind of like maybe could make it confusing or whatever. And to me, that's okay. But when working with other people, sometimes they tell me to edit my stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you make a slightly more mainstream thing, you know. Yeah.
Nice. Damn.
And
Good
sometimes that can
answer.
be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
That's what I'm doing these
There
days.
it is. Well, dude. So in conclusion, if we're talking about Jesus too, when do you think we can expect that, or do you not? You still don't have a real ETA exactly.
I don't know like what I don't know where it's going to show. So it'll be done being animated in the summer, like late summer. And then I don't know. I'm gonna submit it to festivals,
Yeah, that's the
and
next
then
step. Right on.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then probably eventually put it up on YouTube.
Hmm.
Um, and then I'm doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes because I'm trying to like build a studio and stuff. So around using Jesus 2 as my calling card, sort of. So I'm trying to build my own like independent studio where I can support my own work and then the work of people I respect. If they want to jump on board and like make something with me, I'm trying to. That's like the broad vision is like all these people I know who are in the same boat as me, trying to get stuff made and having a hard time because they're too niche or whatever. I'm trying to build a place where those people can go.
Yeah, man. Give
Um,
back to the community, man.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
yeah. Hopefully that what like we could talk about like the village and all this kind of stuff, like what our role is in society and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like
Nah, it doesn't need to do it. But
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but yeah. But
yeah.
yeah.
Something back. It's a give and take. It's a give and take between yourself, you're the audience, and also your peers, right? You want to help out your friends, people you respect, or even people you look up to.
Hell yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Good to be in a position to do that. Yeah. Sick, dude. Well, I can't wait to see that when it finally comes out. And yeah, man. Yeah, I don't wish I were still in LA, but I do wish we got a couple more hangs in. But
yeah.
yeah, you're not going to be in New York anytime soon, are you? Or are you?
No,
Yeah.
I haven't. I haven't been to New York in so long, years and years.
Dude,
Um,
it's kind of different. I mean,
is it?
I'm loving it. I mean, I'm like so
Yeah.
happy to be back, but this shit's kind of wild west out here, man. I mean,
Is it?
I like why are people still I'm not answering. I'm not answering that. No, this I was on the subway platform 2 days ago, or no,
Yeah.
yesterday I think, and this dude no, 2 days ago, and there was a guy in a wheelchair just smoking crack on the platform, just
Yeah.
blasting, just going to town on his crack
Yeah.
pipe. I didn't even know what to like. I just looked at him. I saw the pipe, and I didn't. I was so uncomfortable. I just said like, "Damn, yo," and he was like, "So yeah, New York's a
I
little
always let.
out there,
I
man."
Yeah. I always liked New York to visit. To me, that was like it's an exciting place, and
Yeah,
I
rules.
I I I was in relationships with a couple people who lived in New York, and so I got to sort of live vicariously through them for a while. But man, I'm so entrenched in LA, like the LA
Yeah,
lifestyle.
that's good. I'm
Like
glad. I'm glad you. Yeah,
it works for me.
I'm glad you're digging it, man. No, it's a psychedelic place. It is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
a lonely place. It's like, but for some reason, I like the loneliness. It's weird.
Yeah, no, I respect the
Yeah, yeah,
difference.
yeah.
But word. Well, so yeah, maybe I'll probably be out in LA before you're out here.
Okay.
But yeah, man. Again, thank you so much, Jesse.
Yeah, good
Fucking
catching up, man.
yeah, really fun to talk, man. All right. See you soon, I hope.
Yeah, I'll see you soon. We'll keep in touch. Keep DMing each other across the country.
Yep. Keep it
I'll
going.
see you. Talk to you soon.
All right. See you, man.
And good seeing Jim Winters.
Nice. Yeah, thanks to everyone.
Legend, hardcore legend.
Hell yeah. Nice. Yeah, right. Thanks to everyone in the chat. All right.
All
See
right.
you, man.
Bye.
And my only final words, aside from thanks to everyone, is like and subscribe. I could have said that up top, but yeah, like and subscribe to the channel. Check out the Patreon link if you liked this. Definitely throw a little money at the Patreon. There's like exclusive stuff for the Patreon. I do educational like music ed videos, guitar tutorials, unreleased tracks, and musical projects, of mine that you get for free if you're if you're like a Patreon subscriber. So yeah, that's another thing. That's my only other announcement. But yeah, Last Things is back. I'm in New York. Life's still a little crazy, but I'm gonna settle into a real apartment, and I'll be doing Last Things from there. So there you go, everyone. Thank you so much. Peace.